Thank you, Mayor and Council members. A couple housekeeping items before I go over the work session items for tonight. Apparently there's a password to get onto the computer to get on here, and we're trying to get that for you, so bear with us on the technology. We'll get the PowerPoint up as soon as we can. For those of you that haven't been here before, there are restrooms through those double doors and to the left. There are exits here on both sides of this room because we do have a packed house, and we have experts in the room that can help us with all of that if we have an emergency. There is public comment and a rezoning public hearing. Make sure if you want to speak tonight that your sign-in sheets, make sure that you sign in either for public comment, which is 3 minutes on any item, and then there's the rezoning hearing, so that is specific to the rezoning. So make sure if you want to.
And that rezoning concerns Gaston College.
It's for the Gaston College Technology Fiber Innovation Center. So if you want to speak on the Gaston College rezoning, sign up on the rezoning sheet. Anything else goes on public comment. With that being said, I will go over the consent agenda items. You have several minutes from our September meetings. You've got the minutes from the September 6th regular meeting, the September 19th workshop, and then Jamie has passed out the minutes from the closed session on September the 12th. Please review those and make sure they make their way back to the clerk when you're finished with those.
Yes.
We have several street closure requests. Item 4 on the consent agenda is for an ordinance to close multiple streets on October the 9th, which is this Sunday, for the police department's March for Peace, Justice, and Unity. That's part of the Faith in Blue weekend of events, and you should have a flyer listing all the weekend events associated with the Faith in Blue weekend. We also have a request to close St. Giles Court, which is a kind of a cul-de-sac in the Hawthorne neighborhood for a neighborhood event on October the 29th. And then a similar request to close the streets in the Pebble Creek neighborhood on October 31st for Halloween. This is something that we have done for many years to allow for safe trick-or-treating in the North Belmont neighborhood of Pebble Creek. We also have the annual agreement with the Montcross Area Chamber of Commerce for their Christmas services. As you know, they provide all the logistics, and they put on the Christmas parade for us, which they've done for many years, using the same terms as last year. They also help with promoting all of our various Christmas events and the tree lighting ceremony and the festival of trees and all the things that the Main Street program is working on for a successful Christmas season for our downtown and our community. And speaking of the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, we have a request to close the portion of Main Street in front of City Hall on November the 28th, which is a Monday, for the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. As you've all seen, that event has gotten larger and larger every year. Right. And so to protect the motoring public, but also the participants, we want to close Main Street in front of City Hall for that event. And then a request to close multiple streets on the next day, Tuesday, November the 29th, for the annual Belmont Christmas Parade. There's a map of the parade in your packet. So lots of we're getting into our even busier event season coming up with the holidays. Item 10 on the consent agenda is to accept the certificate of sufficiency for an annexation petition of 2 properties on Hickory Grove Road. This is the second of a 3-step process. You accepted the petition for annexation last month. You investigated the clerk you directed the clerk to investigate the sufficiency. She's done that, and she's reported that in your packet. And the next step would be to have a public hearing on that annexation request at your November City Council meeting. Item 11 on the consent agenda is adoption of a resolution related to the relinquishment of the ETJ. This is something that is a follow-up from your workshop, from your retreat back in January. Staff has been working with staff from Gaston County on the process by which we could relinquish our ETJ. And the county has requested this resolution to start that process. If you approve the resolution, then we will work with the county staff on all the logistics, and that will go to both the Belmont Planning and Zoning Board, Belmont City Council, as well as the Gaston County Planning Board and County Commissioners. So this resolution starts the process. It does not finalize that process. Item 12 on the consent agenda is selection of a vendor for the AIA grant for professional services. As you know, we received 2 grants from the State Department of Environmental Quality to do an asset and inventory assessment of our water and sewer system. We need professional services to help us with that, and we did a solicitation for professional services, and Withers Ravenel was frankly our only respondent, even though we followed our normal process. We confirmed with NCDEQ that they are both qualified and that the process was valid, and they said yes, they've worked with Withers Ravenel on a lot of these AIA assessments across the state, and they did confirm that our process was valid and met all the requirements for it. So we do recommend that you select Withers Ravenel to do that work. And this is a professional services agreement, so it's qualifications based. We will then you basically select them and authorize us to negotiate a contract with them. And the last item on the consent agenda is kind of a revision and cleanup of an ordinance authorizing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages during the Moonlight Carnival. The DBDA, which is part of our Main Street program, applied for the ABC permit from the ABC Commission, but because the ordinance did not list the DBDA as a kind of a co-host or co-applicant on that, it just listed the city. The ABC Commission wanted, or the ABC, yes, ALE, I guess, wanted the DBDA's name on that ordinance. So this is coming to you again, just to amend what you've already approved. Okay. So that's all that we have for you tonight on the consent agenda. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just have one, and again, it's on number 10 there. So that's just to continue the process. We are not voting on annexing that tonight, correct?
That's correct. Okay.
Again, I just wanted to make that abundantly clear.
Right. You would be accepting the clerk's sufficiency study on that and scheduling the public hearing for the November meeting. In the November meeting, you would hold the public hearing, and then you would have the vote to annex or not to annex.
Perfect. Thank you.
Adrian, for item number 6, the Pebble Creek in Hawthorne, I know we had a citizen come up and ask us to waive those fees. Where did we end up on that? Are we waiving those fees for the barricades, or?
So, in doing a little bit more research on that, we did not include those rental fees in the fee schedule. We have done that sort of administratively when non-city entities want to close streets or want to use city equipment. We do have a schedule that we use internally for a private company or a nonprofit group or some other company or some other entity who wants to use barricades or cones. We have a per unit cost for that. We have not, as just sort of a practice, we have not charged our residents to when they're having a neighborhood event like this. We have not charged them, so I'm fine not charging that. I think we need to kind of formalize a policy on that and maybe add that to the fee schedule in next year's budget if we want to have a discussion. But we have not been charging them in the past.
Okay.
So
I'm fine with that because, for me, it's public safety.
Absolutely.
Keep the kids in a safe area, so I have an issue with that.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple things more that the things on the consent agenda reminded me of some other things, but with the chamber items, have we been getting the 10 hours of economic development activity that was part of the contract for the new lease on the space in City Hall?
I have not asked that question, so I don't know. I could certainly do that and bring that back to you next month.
All right, thank you. And I also noticed in the proposal for the Christmas parade agreement, there was like a $360 discrepancy between the income and expenses. That didn't make sense to me, but
there's a representative from the chamber here that could speak to that. Mark, are you still here? Do you mind coming up to the podium and answer Councilman Heffron's question?
Well, before we set the agenda. Yeah.
What's that, Mark?
Yes, I was trying to be very conservative, and I didn't want to overinflate the numbers and show you that we were making a lot of money. We'll be doing good break even. Okay. So it showed a little bit of a loss.
Okay.
I'm hoping I don't go into anything with any idea that I'm gonna take a loss, but I just wanted to be honest.
Okay. We're just, because we have to have balanced budget, so that's why I was,
I can balance it very quickly.
okay, that's all.
I have one question. While you're still up there, what cadence had we agreed on as far as the updates from you guys on sort of?
Quarterly, I believe.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
just started. And I mean,
Okay.
we can make a report anytime you want to.
All right,
We're keeping a record, but whenever
Okay.
you want to, it started
right.
probably.
well, I apologize in that case. I don't think I was at the workshop where we finalized that.
Yeah,
so
I
wasn't
couldn't
aware
remember
it
if it
was-
was monthly or quarterly. But
Okay.
quarterly sounds right.
That's,
Yeah.
then I'll just wait for the quarterly. That's
We
fine.
can adjust however you all want.
When would you like to make the first one?
We can make it first. I mean, we can make it at the next meeting if you want to.
Yeah, I mean that would work.
All right.
Yeah.
And that'll give you some idea of how it's moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we spent an hour and a half with somebody today that just walked in off the street, just to give you an idea. I mean,
Okay.
that's how it works.
Okay.
Yeah, be glad to do that.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I don't have anything else further with I did have one other thing with the Withers Ravenel QBS for the AIA grant. That just reminded me in your absence at the workshop when we were talking about the City Hall renovation firms. I just can you remind us that also is QBS in terms of, because we were talking about costs, and I don't think we should have been, perhaps.
So under the state law, if it's professional services that's qualifications based, like architectural firms and consulting firms, you should really only consider the qualifications of that firm. And then you've ranked your top 3 or 4 firms that you want to interview. When you interview them, do it with the perspective of which of these firms is most qualified based on their experience, based on their approach to the project, and experience with similar projects, things like that. The qualifications of their team members, but you're not looking at who's going to do it for $10,000 versus $12,000. So you will make your selection of the top qualified firm, and then you will authorize us to negotiate a contract with that top qualified firm. We will then negotiate a contract with them. You do not have to approve the contract. If you find it too expensive, then you go to the next qualified firm. But that process, when we do interviews, hopefully on the 24th, will be solely based on the qualifications of the firm.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right. That being the case.
Any other questions on consent agenda items? Okay, that's all I have, Mayor. You can go ahead and call the regular meeting to order then.
Let's go into calling the meeting to order. Jim, if you want to do the invocation, and Martha, if you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance, that'd be great.
So, bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed on us, our health, our safety. We ask that you bestow your wisdom and guidance on us as we make decisions for the benefit of the community tonight. We pray for all of those who suffered loss of property, loss of life and injury in the wake of the recent hurricane. And we ask you to lift those individuals up and keep them in your prayers. And we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we're going to do a recognition or acknowledgement for Joe Stowe. Where's Joe at? Is he here? There he is. He's coming. I'll go this way. Hi, Joe.
Charlie.
Congratulations. All the years of service on that committee right there.
6 years of service.
I know. Oh, thank you. That's for you.
Okay, thank you.
That's a photo. And Martha's going to say a few words too as well.
Yeah, you don't get off the hook too easily.
Just 2 words. That's it.
No, several words. I asked to stand with Charlie because a lot of us do not realize what occurred to get the ABC store started. We had a workshop or retreat. We had a representative from Raleigh, an ABC Board representative, who told us we would probably not make much of any money. We had 2 neighboring municipalities who offered to come and take care of this for us and set it up and give us 30% of the profits. Fortunately, we did not make that choice. The other thing most of us did not know was that all the restaurants in Belmont were buying from the ABC stores from those other municipalities, so no wonder they wanted to help us. The other part of it is that when you're looking at a first-class facility, which we have thanks to Joe and his board, that takes a lot of money. Not all the council members wanted to advance the funds, but if you look at what we have and where it is, and the fact that it takes over $200,000 at that time to stock an ABC store, it is pretty amazing because within 6 months, thanks to Joe's leadership, we were up and running and have been, and I think continue to be, one of the top performing ABC stores in the area. Yeah. So
Great.
I guess to the end,
Great
which
job.
would make
the
it
last
item 11.
part of it is, where does
Is that
that
11?
money
Oh,
go?
item 9.
That money goes for alcohol education. It goes for an ALE officer to work with the restaurants to make sure they're in compliance. And it also rolls back to Main Street events and other activities that we have there. So it all is used in a good way. And thank you, Joe, for making sure that we had a first-class setup.
Amen. And this is the plaque we're going to give to Certificate of Appreciation and recognition of Joe Stowe for his service on the Belmont ABC Board, and we appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. God bless you. You want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Richard has some,
I'm going to motion for a couple of changes, Charlie.
Okay.
First change, I would like to move item 11, discussion on relinquishing the ETJ, from the consent agenda to the regular agenda as item 9. Item 2 from reports, which would be our financial update. Remove that from reports and put that on our regular agenda as item 2A, if possible.
and renumber everything else accordingly. Or
Well, if it's 2A, we should be able to move directly to 3, should we not?
So item 2 on the regular agenda is the public hearing on the rezoning, and item 3
I'd
is
make it
the-
1A.
Or 1.5.
Do you want to do it after the public comment and before the rezoning, or after the rezoning?
I would do it after the public comment.
After
Yeah.
the public comment. I
Okay,
mean,
so
wherever you
make
think
that
it's
as item
appropriate.
2.
Yeah,
Okay.
we usually do
That's
public
fine.
comment first.
That's
Sure.
So I'll second Richard's motion.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, let's see here what we got. Let's see, 2. Who's there? Okay, item 3, public comment. We got several people signed up for public comment.
Oh,
I move to approve the consent agenda
I'll
as
second.
amended.
Okay, yeah, let's make a motion.
We've got it. Motion and
Mark
second.
set moved, Martha second.
Second, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's moved. Okay.
And Mayor, before we move into public comment, I want to thank our former Chief Technology Officer, Seth Norcutt, for taking Jamie's phone call and helping us get our PowerPoint working. So even though Seth is no longer with us, he is still working for us. So thank you, Seth.
That's commitment.
Yes.
All right. First person we have signed up to speak on public comment is Amanda Memrick. And you got 3 minutes to speak.
Adrian, could you remind the public, a lot of these people are new to coming to our meetings, how public comment works, because that would be a concern to me.
Yes, ma'am. So for those of you that haven't been here before, public comment is an opportunity for anyone to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes. And you are asked to be respectful of each other, of the council, the mayor, the staff, and clapping and heckling and all that is not appreciated here. We just want, because we don't want to interrupt the speakers, we want to make sure that the mayor and council members have an opportunity to hear everyone. So we appreciate everyone's passion and enthusiasm, but we want to focus on what the speakers are saying, and it is not an opportunity for a dialogue between the council and the speakers. It is for the speakers to present information to the council. If there's action to be taken, the council will direct the city manager to follow up, but it is not a debate or a discussion between the council and the speakers.
And if you look, there's a display there. It'll be green at the podium, and then yellow, and then red when the time is up.
Okay.
So don't count any of what I just said against Amanda's time.
All right. I've known Amanda a long time, so.
My name is Amanda Memrick. I live at 104 Timber Ridge Road. I'm here today to represent the South Hill Estates neighborhood, where I've lived for 13 years. We're a peaceful little community of 43 homes on 3 dead-end streets, but a developer wants to change that. The Henry Chapel development wants to turn our neighborhood into a cut-through, adding more cars driving through while taking away our front lawns to make room for bike lanes. Our neighborhood doesn't have much traffic now, except for those who live here and the occasional Amazon driver. If the Henry Chapel development is allowed to connect our roads, its residents won't want to sit in gridlock on South Point Road. Instead, they'll cut through our neighborhood, dramatically increasing traffic and noise while making it more dangerous for my children to play in their own front yard. And it's not just about our community. It's about all our neighbors on the South Point Peninsula who will have to get up even earlier to get to work and wait even longer to get home. This development will affect anyone who uses South Point Road. Traffic already stands still during the morning and evening commutes. Think what will happen if 628 more homes and at least 1,200 more cars are on the road. The development's own traffic study anticipates that the subdivision will create more than 5,000 daily trips. Can our roads handle this increase? NCDOT doesn't plan on widening South Point Road anytime soon. When I take my daughter to school, I have to time it just right to get onto South Point Road. The only way I'm able to get back into my neighborhood is to wait for a courteous driver to flash his lights, slow down, and let me turn left. I'm not against development, nor am I against change. I know that cities have to evolve and know that things can't always stay the same. Infrastructure, not development, should come first. I've heard folks say there's nothing you can do. If a development checks all the boxes, it goes through, like it or not. I don't think that's right, and I'm confident that I'm not alone. If the infrastructure isn't in place to support a proposed development, it should be turned down. Beaumont needs to take a stand and say enough is enough. We need leaders who are willing to do the right thing, even if that means changing the status quo. Please stand up for Belmont by standing up to this developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Next, we have signed up to speak Jessica Oliver. I've known Jessica since she was little.
I'm not used to doing this, but recently, so I live in the low-income apartments in Belmont. We recently had a drastic rent increase. We have 2 small children. My hours have been cut at work. Sorry. Since we got the rent increase, I have been stressed out just trying to figure out how we're going to make it work. I did file a complaint today. We got this notice probably not quite 2 weeks ago, and we're expected to come up with $1,000 for a low-income apartment where I've only worked part-time. Their dad did turn his income in. I expected the rent to go up, but not $800 more in a low-income apartment. We've been there about 3 years, and I've never had any issue before with the lady who's been there. She's been always very nice and understanding. A new lady came in and it's like everything's changed. I'm not sure any of the other residents like situations, but I have heard one lady went to her requesting a payment arrangement. She decided to work with her. I asked for a payment arrangement. I was told no. I told her when we got the notice it was unreasonable. We were not able to do that. And it's pretty much like there was nothing she could do. She pulled our records. I was honest with her about our income. And at this point, I didn't know what to do. I contacted the mayor. I filed a complaint today with the Gaston Housing Authority. And I just don't want other families to have to go through this. I don't know what needs to be done, but something has to be done. It wasn't, you know, me as a little girl, I lived there. I haven't seen any changes in those apartments besides maybe the bathroom floor and the kitchen sink. The pipes I know are going to be redone. That's a whole project that's going to take place. They won't get to us until May. But I was scared that we were going to get evicted because we couldn't come up with the rent. So I started trying to look for a place. I've spoke with my grandfather, who's always been there to give me good advice. Him and Charlie are good friends. And that's all that I knew to do. So aside from praying, I just hope that with this being told, I can help other families. So something needs to be done about Section 8 apartments. I just feel like $1,000 is unreasonable. We have leaks constantly. The maintenance man's been over there multiple times. He is very nice. It is a lot on one man. I understand to have 50 apartments. I wish they would get him some help, but I just never thought I would have to deal with this, and having 2 young kids, that was my main concern, us not having somewhere to go if we were to be evicted. And then it was today, after I filed the complaint, that she reached out to me, and now she wants to try to talk about things. And at this point, I had already told my boyfriend I didn't really want to ask for anything else because of the stress.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Buddy Penley.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for giving me this opportunity. I'm here about the Henry's Chapel project also. Belmont is full. South Point is full. My name is Buddy Penley, and I live on Timber Ridge Road in South Hill Estates. I've lived here since 1978. Our sons played soccer together.
Yes, they played soccer together. Buddy Penley.
And raised my family in this neighborhood. We are a neighborhood of older citizens and young married couples with children. We walk the neighborhood, we walk our pets, and the children can safely play in the street without worrying about being hit by vehicles flying through the neighborhood. South Hill Estates consists of 3 streets that are all cul-de-sacs. This development was built in the 70s when Belmont was a sleepy little mill town. And Timber Ridge Road was stubbed as a connector street, which at that time was possibly a good option. However, this is 2022, and Belmont is no longer a sleepy little mill town. And Timber Ridge Road, as a connector to South Point Road, is the worst possible option. The worst possible option. To get to South Point Road, you have to take Timber Ridge Road to the stop sign, turn right on Colonial to the stop sign, turn left on Forest Hill to the stop sign at South Point Road. There are several other options that are straight to South Point Road. The new street between Bowen and Bellwood, and even Bellwood's a straight shot, are much better options. Just because Timber Ridge Road was designated connector in the 70s doesn't necessarily mean it can't be changed. The government changes and amends things on a daily basis. I am a retired firefighter, and the traffic on South Point Road should be a concern to anyone who lives anywhere along South Point Road. Response time for fire and medical vehicles during peak travel time on South Point Road can be reduced drastically, which could delay getting fire trucks to a structure fire or an ambulance to someone injured or critically ill. Response time for emergency services is critical. South Point Road has no outlets. If you live anywhere up or down South Point Road, you have one way in and one way out. On top of all the development up and down South Point Road, we also contend with traffic from the developments at Seven Oaks, the McLean developments, as well as all the vehicles coming out of South Carolina. Putting in left turn lanes and red lights does not solve the problem. You will still have the same amount of vehicles traveling up and down South Point Road. Am I through?
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Huh?
Yeah, that's it.
I ain't through.
Thank you so much. All right, next. Next, we have Christina Gullidge.
You might have to repeat that.
Christina here?
Repeat it.
Mayor, they were clapping. Can you repeat
Christina
it?
Gullidge. Is she here? There we go. State your name and address, and you got 3 minutes.
I'm Christina Gullidge. I live at 608 Shady Creek Court. I'm here speaking tonight in opposition of the Henry Chapel Road development. My husband and I moved to Belmont 12 and a half years ago. At that time, since then, we've seen hundreds of homes be built, and it's no surprise because Belmont, it's popular and it's fantastic. But we need to make a plan on if there's any options on how we can improve our current roads. Getting in and out of town is just a nightmare, pretty much at different times of the day. I understand the North Carolina Department of Transportation is responsible for road changes, additions, but unfortunately Belmont's just too low on their priority list. I live about 3.5 miles down South Point Road, and my daughter, I have 2 children that go to South Point High School, and my oldest daughter actually, she's chosen to actually go down New Hope Road every morning. She leaves about 7:45, and then she cuts down Upper Armstrong Road and then takes a right on Julia Avenue to avoid South Point Road and the gridlock. And it's just ridiculous that a 16-year-old has recognized how dangerous South Point Road has become. The Henry Chapel development is possibly going to add 600 new homes into our current environment that's already at gridlock, bumper-to-bumper traffic, possibly 1,200 or more vehicles in gridlock. So I'd like to ask you if there's an opportunity to, look and assess, can we do a feasibility study to understand, is there a way to improve our current conditions and continue to make Belmont great? Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Next, we have Jose Romero. ¿De qué país?
My name's Jose Romero. I wasn't expecting to speak today, so I don't have any notes. But I'm from South Hill Estates. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on myself. I'm a United States Naval veteran. I'm a retired federal agent working here, protecting our citizens, from the time that I was an adult, I served my community and my country because that's what I wanted to do. Now I'm asking you, please protect my family, save them, because my grandkids play in these streets. And that's my life. That's what I do. And you can ask anybody who knows me how I bring them to school. And yes, I go through that South Point traffic just to bring my grandson to school. And I don't mind it. But I do mind hundreds of cars going through my neighborhood where my grandson, who's 8 years old, my granddaughter, who's not even 2 years old yet, won't be able to play. So I'm asking y'all to please step up and help me now. Because my family needs y'all. This is my retirement home. I can't afford, and I'm now a small business owner as well. So I'm trying, I will have no choice if this goes through to leave Belmont. And I don't want that. This is my home. So please, because if you can't save me, if you can't save us, we're done. Help us. Please.
Gracias.
Adrian, just for the record, because there's a lot of people here, if you could, there's nothing about this project on the agenda tonight, and if you could let everyone know that the next event coming up related to that development will be the community meeting on October 18th.
Yes, sir. So,
Yes.
And Shelley DeHart, our planning and zoning director, can give more information, but we are in the beginning stages of this project for the Henry Chapel Road development. It will ultimately come to the city council, but it will be several months before that, before it comes to the city council. The first step in the public engagement process will be a community meeting, and as I'm sure you all know, that first community meeting will be held Monday the 18th at
So
6
Tuesday.
o'clock, or Tuesday, October the 18th at 6 o'clock at First Methodist Church on South Point Road. That information is on our website. If you own property nearby, you'll get a notice, but there should be a sign on the development property, but also our website has all the information. After the community meeting, there will be a follow-up community meeting that's not been scheduled yet. Then the project will go to the Planning and Zoning Board for review, and then ultimately to the City Council for consideration.
And
So-
both of those, the planning board and city council, are public hearings as well.
Yes, so there will be plenty of opportunity. You're always welcome to come to our city council meetings and speak and public comment, but there will not be any action taken by the city council for several months, depending on how long the process takes. We're currently scheduling meetings with the developer and NCDOT to review the traffic impact analysis that is required by your ordinance. And then after that, the mitigation is identified, the recommendations are identified. Then there will be a second community meeting the developer will host.
Just for clarification, this is the major development plan, so there's one.
Oh, just one, I'm sorry.
Then it will go to the planning board and council.
So the meeting on the 18th will be the only community meeting, correct?
I'm sorry?
So then the meeting on the 18th will be the only community
That is
meeting?
correct.
Okay. But there will,
You, of course, can accept any comments or letters and emails about the project throughout the process.
and all the information that we have, Shelley, on this project is on our city website at citybelmont.org/current projects. Is that right?
Well, I think just you can Google or search on the homepage Henry's Chapel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment on the hearing for the public hearing for the Gaston College.
We agreed to
Oh, that's
move
right. We agreed to move
yeah.
item. Yeah,
So
that's
it's going to
right.
be the finance director report.
That's right. Number 2.
So I asked our finance director, Jared Piles, to come and give an update. This is a follow-up from his report last month to you. You asked for monthly reports from him. Let me get your slides, Jared.
All right, Jared. Go get
Good
him.
evening, everybody.
Welcome. I'm sure you've been looking forward to this.
Very much so, yeah.
And I want to make a comment before we have this. This is a report. I'll address in other business my concerns about the last meeting, but I want to make sure that we are deliberating and listening at a high level. So I want
Yes.
to make sure that is clear.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Yeah.
So we'll just jump right in. So audit status, fiscal year 2021 audit is currently underway this week. Auditors are conducting final fieldwork procedures. And same as timeline as last month, we anticipate to have approved financial statements late this month to early November. Once we get those accepted and approved by the LGC, we'll then sign an engagement letter with our auditors to engage on fiscal year 2022. Anticipate to start that immediately thereafter, finalizing the 2021 audit, and expect to have our approved financial statements in December 2022. And again, this is all in a goal to be on the LGC's agenda in February so that we can get a approved loan for the Belmont Parks and Recreation Center out front. Just to update on the expenditures, project authorization for the entire project is $13.6 million. Our construction budget is $13.2 million. The other 400-ish thousand there would be related to design and engineering that's already taken place. Construction costs to date are at $7,759,047, and the projected construction costs remaining are $5,312,255. And this is just a snapshot. I included that this time. This is the anticipated bill, so to speak, from Edifice, our contractors. We just paid and cleared the $839,000 payment application that just cleared last week. So we still have not received that $1.1 million bill, but we anticipate to receive that within the next week or so. That will also be paid by the end of this month. And as you can see, those payment applications begin to get lesser and lesser as we are nearing closer to completion of the project. And then just a 2022-2023 finance update at a glance. First quarter of the fiscal year is over. All of our departmental expenditures are in line with timing of the fiscal year. We are about to embark on the big 3 period of cash collection with tax revenue between November and January. And our state distributed revenues are beginning to come in, and our sales tax is over what we had budgeted. And we anticipate, as long as we collect around $364,000 per month, we'll hit our budget targets for this fiscal year. From a cash flow standpoint, I did want to mention, I had projected last month that our cash on hand at the end of September would be approximately $5.94 million. We actually had $120,000 over my projection and was at $6.06 million in relation to cash flowing the payment applications on the previous slide. And that is all I have, so I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Jared.
Well, I have a question about this letter that says that the auditors don't plan to issue their report until December 1st.
I would need to review the letter. Is that a letter that was sent today?
This was, the Martin Starr sent this late this afternoon.
Okay. I have not had a chance to review that letter, but I will certainly do that and consult with them, because I spoke with the audit manager today for 2 hours, and we spoke about the timeline, and she was on board with that. So that may be their, I guess, maximum deadline, but they understand our time frame, and so if I need to, I can speak with them and we can have that letter revised if needed, but I'll have to speak with them first before we ultimately do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Jared.
I mean, it does say by December 1st, not on December 1st, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I have a question. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about whether the resolution/ordinance authorized the financing in this manner, and I had asked that we look into that, and so I would ask the city attorney whether he has looked into that, and what, if so, what the findings are.
Yes, sir, I have. To paraphrase, I think you said something like, somebody tell me this was legal, that
yes, that might
what
have
was
been.
done. And my focus was primarily on 3 actions by the council and 3 documents. The first, at your workshop, August of 21, where the lengthy discussion with Edifice, the contractor, resulted in the council adopting unanimously a guaranteed maximum price A1A standard form contract, which that was the basis of moving forward, and you made the motion, Councilman Turner seconded, and that was approved in August. Then what you mainly were concerned about or questioned was in September. That was followed by the reimbursement resolution. So I looked a little bit behind the reimbursement resolution because that was presented by our third-party professional consultant, as you recall. My research indicated, I was glad to find out that document was prepared by Parker Poe's bond counsel, Scott Leo and his partners, and they are highly regarded specialists in the area and have been bond counsel for us, the city of Belmont, on several occasions, most recently on the referendum that we put out for vote on bonds. They were our bond counsel. So they prepared that document in conversation with staff of the LGC, and I'm satisfied that that is a perfectly legal document, and it was unanimously approved by council. And then third, the capital project ordinance, of course, was adopted in January of this year unanimously, and it was it just reflected the $1.5 million contribution from the state was going to participate in reducing Belmont's obligation from the 13.2 or so down to 12.1, and that was unanimously adopted. And so as far as the structure and content of these documents, I'm satisfied that everything's legal and in order.
Me too. Okay.
Well, Parks, to follow up with that, I mean, the document was structured properly. I think one of the question was surrounding whether we did not do a budget amendment. The money was drawn directly out of operating funds.
Mm-hmm.
That was the question that I had, not structurally, but how we financed it, where we
I'll
pulled the money from.
defer to the manager, but most of the time budget amendments are done in groups at periodic intervals during the year. I don't know what staff, I mean, you had the budget ordinance said make the payments as they come due. And so traditionally, you don't have a budget ordinance amendment every time you make a payment. You do it in some kind of regular interval, usually sometimes even at the end of the year or part way through the year. You might want to speak to that, Mr. Manager. That's not mine.
So the council approved a capital project ordinance in January of 22 for the project, which construction, you remember you had the groundbreaking in December of 2021. So prior to the capital project ordinance, we did cash flow the sort of the mobilization costs, the very initial cost, out of the operating budget, out of the capital budget for fiscal year 21-22. Once council approved the capital project ordinance, all the funding for the project was out of that, not out of the operating budget, which is what we typically do for large capital projects that are going to span multiple fiscal years. So, so that is what was approved in January of 2022, and when we started getting our invoices from Edifice for construction after that, we paid for it out of the capital project ordinance.
So, I guess my question would be: there's no money to spend in that ordinance because the only revenue in that ordinance is from the loan. If there's no loan, there's no money. But I guess my concern is, how can you spend money that you don't have?
I'll say that the ordinance said funds could be advanced from the general fund until traditional funding was secured.
Yes.
So wouldn't that have to hit the regular budget at some point if we were doing that?
It will at some point. Yes.
Jared, can you explain the mechanics of that, please?
So that's in the structure of the project ordinance. So because it's very similar in just a general budget ordinance, right? You have anticipated revenues for whatever expenses are approved. So it's very similar with a project ordinance. We have anticipated revenues of loan proceeds and a $1.5 million grant from the state of North Carolina for design and engineering construction costs related to the rec center. So basically the reimbursement resolution, along with, and I know we discussed this at length at the last meeting, but the reimbursement resolution in conjunction with the project ordinance was the green light to cash flow the project until we get the revenue.
I don't know if that was council's intent, though. I mean, when it was presented to us, it was presented merely as a, I checked my notes on this, and it looked like the primary driver for adopting that ordinance was to allocate some of the funding that we had received from the state for this project. There was some sort of deadline around that. I forget exactly what it was. but we received a grant that had to be allocated, so we adopted a project ordinance to do that. And I don't know that it was council's intent to then spend $8 million hoping that we would get the loan later. Like, that was never in the project plan. The plan was always to get the loan and then do the project.
Well, whether that was the intent or not, that was what was ultimately passed, and that's what we made our decisions and operated off of.
Well, I guess my concern would be how that was presented to us then. Because
I'm
there
not
was
sure how
no
else
conversation
to
about.
present
And obviously, you know,
Well, yeah, I know you're at the microphone, but that is my concern. Well, because we also have another project ordinance, I believe, for the Abbey Creek Greenway. So if that's sitting out there, is there anything preventing that project from going forward? Because I know we've had some discussion, like, I remember specifically adopting that project ordinance so that that project could go out to bid, which I don't believe has happened yet.
It is not.
But the goats have obviously been paid through that ordinance. I wasn't intending to make a big issue about the goats, but it seems to be a similar situation to this, just on a much smaller scale.
I guess similarly, but we also had the contract already in place with Edifice, and I mean, ground was already broken. So it's a little bit different with the Abbey Creek Greenway. But I guess I do understand where you're coming from. But again, from my perspective, there was nothing nefarious. I mean, we presented the project ordinance because we were getting the $1.5 million. I do want to add that out of the construction costs, $1.5 million of that was from the state of North Carolina funding that we allocated to that. But again,
yeah, well, I mean, from my perspective, that's all you had spent. I mean, I wouldn't have had a problem with that because that's money that came in and was budgeted for that project. Whereas with this loan, it's still theoretical at this point.
Sure, there was no direction that would have given me a reason to want to pause, given we had the cash available, the documents were in place. We actually went above and beyond what was needed as far as the document structure. So I felt comfortable with proceeding, and that's what we've done.
Thank you, Jared.
Let me ask you, where are we with our audits right now? I mean, we are going to present on time?
Yes, so we're doing
Well-
final fieldwork procedures. That's the goal. I mean,
we're on time in terms of the current framework. Obviously, we're late.
Yeah, we were late before I even was hired.
I mean, that's a given, we're late,
yeah.
but we have a time frame before us to try to meet.
Yeah, so
will we meet the time
really my
frame?
goal would be, because we're doing final fieldwork procedures this week, so all of our audit documentation's been uploaded. They're doing a remote audit, so everything, I uploaded everything at the beginning of August, and I don't want to confuse you with the dates, but our goal was to try to have it completed in August, but our auditors didn't have the resources and capabilities to get that done in August. So it's kind of just been sitting there. They've been working night and weekends, been looking at some things, but the first week of October has always been blocked off for us, for them. Like, it was on their calendar scheduled for us. So they're doing that this week. We'll obviously have back and forth with the audit partner, audit manager to get this thing done. What I'd really like to do is be able to present audited financial statements for the fiscal year 2021 by next month. And what that would mean is let's just say that the audited financial statements come in, approved, accepted mid-November. What that would mean is we will have done 2 audits in 1 year, and rather than being 2 years behind a year ago, we will be 2 weeks behind from a financial reporting perspective. So we're making a lot of groundwork and leeway and headway. Yep. And our auditors consulted with them. 90% of what I've submitted, they've accepted and reviewed. There's been a little bit of back and forth. That's expected. I mean, nothing's going to be perfect, but 90% of what I've put into their portal has been approved. They just got to audit it, draft the financial statements. There's going to be back and forth this week. They'll complete it this week. And I feel confident that we'll get it done and have audited financial statements within the next few weeks. That's for 21. Then we'll be engaged to do 2022, which just ended on 6/30/2022. Get that one out the door. And again, we're trying to meet that February agenda for the LGC to get that loan.
There was also a lot of discussion at the previous meeting about a clean audit. I called Barry Webb and talked to him because I said I wanted to make sure for myself I understood this, and I did, that we do not have a large financial staff, so we will never have a clean audit because we don't have checks and balances. So I wanted to make sure that's clear to our audience as well. It's not that we've done anything wrong. We just do not have a huge staff. So you have all of that, so everybody's watching to make sure that nothing is done inappropriately.
Yeah, I mean, even in the private sector for corporations, there's always going to be audit deficiencies found that have to be worked on. I mean, that's just reality. For me, again, I know I don't want to, can we just validate this date, the December 1st in the letter? I know you haven't seen it yet, but if we can just get that validated, because again, I mean, no means to keep bringing it up, just get it done, get this financed and move forward, so.
Understood, yeah. Now, is there any specific, do you want something?
So this letter,
I think he was just asking whether you had said, you had anticipated an earlier date, and Mark said, well, wait a minute, the letter says December 1st, that's later than, so I think that's all Alex.
Yeah, and Jared hasn't, he said he hasn't seen the letter.
Yeah.
So again, not holding you, it just says we'll have this by December 1st of 2022 in reference to the 2021 financials.
So if we get it done on the timeline Jared explained, it would be by December 1st. It would be, in fact, before December 1st.
Correct.
Which is by December 1st.
Because it's due October 31st.
And oftentimes, and ultimately it really does depend on the resources from the auditor, because I've worked for them. So oftentimes they'll draft while they're in the field. So they could be drafting our financial statements while they're conducting our audit, theoretically. So again, that's just the by date. If you want me to provide or contact the audit firm and get them to say that they're lighting the fire.
I think we just want it.
Understood. Yes, sir.
And no one likes how we got here.
No.
But we're focused on moving forward and not getting in that situation again. And Jared and his staff are working very hard.
Well, and
to
I
get this cleaned
certainly
up.
appreciate all of your Herculean efforts, and you happen to be behind the microphone right now, but we know that you weren't here when a lot of the problems that got us into this mess happened. You're here trying to fix it, and we certainly appreciate that and acknowledge that. But we do have questions, legitimate questions, and you happen to be the one here to that gets them. But just know that we understand all that you're trying to do, and we appreciate it, and that you weren't the one that got us here. You're trying to fix it.
Understood. I don't take it personally, and I appreciate the sentiment.
Getting us over the hump.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Get us over the hump.
So are we still comfortable with the current way that we're paying for this? I don't know that we've really landed on that or not.
So just so you know, that we monitor our cash balances daily. I have our deputy finance director who monitors that. Anytime anything large clears, or we're having like the edifice check that just cleared last week, she brought it to my attention. We reviewed it, understood what it was. If there's ever a moment where I feel that there's a red flag and we need to do something different, I promise I will bring that to Adrian's attention, and that will ultimately make its way to you.
Well, what I'm more concerned about is the timeline shifts constantly. Like last month, we were promised October 31st. Now it sounds like it might be the middle of November before this audit's done. I mean, I don't want to get into a situation where we've got to find $13 million to pay for this because we can't close on the loan. And from my perspective, an $8 million hole is a lot easier to fill than a $13 million hole.
I understand your concern. We'll obviously keep you updated as we're moving along, and if we need to make any further decisions as far as...
Well, that was really more, I guess, a question for the council, I think.
Which is, are we comfortable with continuing the cash flow?
Yes, because right now we're into this for $8 million. If we keep on the current path, the risk there is that we can continue construction, but the risk is if we don't get the loan on time, then that could present us with having to choose from some very bad options in the not too distant future. Or we hit pause now, which limits our exposure in that situation, and then restart construction once we've got the loan in place.
You asked the question. No, I'm not in favor of hitting pause at all. We are too far into this project. We would look at a situation if you hit pause that you're looking at big projects, you're looking at another year or two before we could get these people back. It makes absolutely no sense to do that to me when we're this far into it.
Well, I just think that's a conversation we need to have.
Well, that's a whole separate meeting then, if that's what you're looking at, if you're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of that and look and see where we would be. So, I think, no.
Well, I mean, we can have it now. I mean,
Do you know how long it would be before they could come back if you hit pause? If you don't, then,
Well, what
then we
happens
don't
if-
have the conversation.
what happens if we don't get the loan? Like, what if we don't get the loan until this time next year? Or, you know, some other, I mean, there's so many unknowns at this point. I just think it's imprudent not to consider that.
So Jared, at the end of this year, I mean, at some point, and I think it's probably the end of this year or February, we're going to be about 12 million deep out of pocket into this. Is that more or less correct?
Yes, that's also spanning multiple fiscal years. But I mean, ultimately, yeah, we've been cash flowing it since, ribbon cutting.
I think.
So that would have been last fiscal year.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for me, I think we had brought it up last time. I think just a visual, and maybe it is a workshop, I don't know, but I'm just throwing out an idea to show, where we are with our current cash position and actually watching the cash flows of where we're at. For me, that's going to be very helpful because we can speculate. I do agree with Mark that I do have my concerns, that again, that we are just kind of depleting our cash, but I need to see it. I need to see, what I mean, from our cash flow perspective.
Understood.
That's
Yeah.
That's a good idea because it would make us have a comfort level with where
We just need
how
to
much
see
this
that.
is
Well, I think
out
I
there.
asked for that at the last
I had
meeting.
included it and it wasn't discussed, so I've just kind of highlighted it here. But could certainly do that in future meetings. That's not a problem at all.
I mean, I would like to see it as well.
Sure.
I mean, hearing the numbers is one thing. Seeing the graph and charts will probably add a little more comfort level.
Understood.
Because you'll actually see the flow. Now, I mean, I would also like to add, you walked into a bad situation. Again, but your point, man, we have to direct our questions at someone. As a council, we're ultimately responsible for the financial decisions the city makes. So, in questioning you, we have to demonstrate to the people here and the public listening that we are exercising both due diligence and our oversight in the matter. So, it's unfortunate that you found yourself in the hot seat, but it's nothing personal. It's just we have to get the answers. We have to show that we are exercising those both diligence and stewardship over those funds. So I just want to let you know that it's just a matter of where we all find ourselves
Sure.
at the moment.
And again, I don't take it personally, and I'm all about transparency. So putting together that cash flow projection is not an issue at all. Again, I did want to reiterate that what I had projected at the end of September did hit that mark, and we continue to monitor that on a daily basis. And I guess would you like that monthly workshop?
I was going to request monthly, and if you don't mind putting into future assumptions until we think to the point where we can go out to finance this.
Gotcha.
And again, I mean, obviously best guess is there, but we do have historical data to support a trend.
Mhm.
So I think that.
And that's where I was basing my cash flow projections off of historical trends, and then also not even baking in the fact that sales tax has been crushing. And but again, certainly provide that on a monthly basis. That's no problem at all.
Well, I think Mark asked a valid question, and that we need to take a look at that at a workshop, because I don't know that anybody's prepared to make that call tonight.
Right.
And we don't have the data in
Well, I
front
think
of
we need
us.
to do that soon too.
Yeah,
because
no, I
we're
agree.
burning cash at about $1 million a month. So
We have
if
a
wait on
workshop
this,
coming up soon.
Yes.
We're
Well,
not going to have
2
another
weeks.
payment
In 2
application due
weeks.
for 3 weeks. So
Would you like to have an update on this at the October workshop?
I mean, is 2 weeks too far an extended period? I mean, if your numbers are correct, we will burn up $500,000 between now and that workshop.
I mean, if that's the fastest we can get it done, I mean, I just feel like we really need to we got to take ownership of this project. Like, it's just completely gotten away from us. And I mean, we're all just hoping that bad things won't happen. And that's not a strategy. I mean, I don't think we should be here in the first place. Like, it's foolish that we even have to talk about this.
Well, consider where we were and where we are now.
Well, where we were a year ago was we hadn't spent $8 million on a rec center that we didn't have financing for. So that's where we were. But
Well, I mean, there is a sense of urgency. I agree with that. I mean, if 2 weeks out is too far, then, I mean, I'm sure we can schedule something in the interim.
I mean, we could do it at the next workshop. I just feel like, you know, we kicked this around a lot at the last meeting, and now here we are again. We're just punting again, and I mean, we gotta make a decision on this at some point.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all either, because I think also we might want to understand the contract language and what we can do and what the maybe negative effects would be. Because again, I think number one priority for me, again, with Mark, is making sure we do have the cash for this. But to Martha's point too, I don't know what I don't know with the uncertainties of what if we do push pause. If I remember correctly, when we discussed this last month, I believe there was something in the language where we could push pause. I just don't, what's the ramifications of when can we get that back?
I'd like to know that information too, so I can weigh the pros and cons.
Well, the pause button was put in the contract probably because the contractor knew we were cash flowing.
Well, yeah, if you read it, it's in there explicitly that if for some reason we're delayed in obtaining financing, we have a right to, you know, bail. So I don't, like, I guess this comes back to, like, why we didn't do that when we knew we weren't going to get the loan. And we just went full steam ahead. I mean, that's just, there's no control there. And I mean, it's, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's just insane.
Anybody have any other questions for Jared?
I don't.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is public comment, a public hearing for Gaston College Fiber Innovation Center.
I'll move to go into public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Hey, Tiffany.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
All right. I think Adrian's controlling slides tonight.
I'm going to give it to you.
No problem. So I am excited to present to you tonight Zoning Map Amendment 2022.04 for the Gaston College Fiber Innovation Center.
That'll be great.
This request is being made for the Gaston College Kimbrell campus, which is located on parcel ID number 186486. The applicant is Gaston College, and they are here with us tonight to answer any questions after my presentation. They are proposing to add a new building on their campus that is sized at 41,500 square feet. And the size of the building requires consideration for approval either by major development plan or conditional zoning. The applicant has requested to ask the council to consider adoption of a conditional district on an 18.51 acre parcel that is currently zoned Institutional Campus District, or ICD, to allow them to have some flexibility in the campus design. Specifically, flexibility is being requested in 3 areas. One is streetscape plantings, where they are proposing an alternative. One is in the area of Greenway, where partial relief is requested. And then the last is in the area of pervious pavement, where relief is being requested. Gaston College Kimbrell campus is located near the intersection of Wilkinson Boulevard and Catawba Street, with access primarily off of Wilkinson Boulevard and that corridor. The image below shows the 2 existing buildings on the site, as well as the location of the future proposed Fiber Innovation Center directly behind the current main entrance and situated centered among the 2 existing buildings. Again, the current zoning on the site is Institutional Campus District, and the site also includes the highway corridor overlay. Adjacent zoning surrounding the parcel includes highway commercial, general residential, and business campus district. The site currently, while it is 18.51 acres in total, includes a project area denoted as just under 3 acres in size, which is located along the northern portion of the site. As the site progresses to the south, there are some steep topographic conditions, and that is based on their location along the floodplain, which is also the floodplain for Abbey Creek. This site is located within the critical watershed area, which caps the built upon area at 24%. So again, here's a comparison of the existing site plan as well as the proposed site plan. And you can see the existing buildings of the classroom building as well as Harney Hall are anticipated to remain. And then the Fiber Innovation Center is proposed to be added to the rear with some additional parking on the west side of the site. This project, as proposed, meets all of the performance standards outlined on the screen, and there's a couple I do want to draw your attention to tonight. In the area of tree save, while our ordinance requires only 10% of the site to be saved as tree save, the proposed development contains 35% of the site as tree save area. And the city staff has checked with our consultant as well as NCDOT and confirmed that a traffic impact analysis is not required and that no additional requests are being made for street improvements. Although I would like to note that that's likely because NCDOT currently has a funded roadway improvement already adjacent to the site that is contained in part along this project's frontage. That's U6143. And the project team continues to coordinate with NCDOT on those proposed improvements as it relates to the project and NCDOT's project as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that in more detail on a further slide. Site access to the site currently is done primarily at the main entrance, and as proposed, this would remain as is, but would be primarily targeted for normal vehicular traffic. There is also another access on Wilkinson Boulevard currently that would allow for one-way traffic or right turn only from Wilkinson into the site. That is currently being proposed to be upgraded to allow for two-way traffic both in and out of the site, and this access point would serve as the main entrance for trucks or larger vehicles. There's also a third access point onto the campus, and that's located off of Alice Street. That is proposed to be restricted as no truck access, and so it would allow for regular vehicular traffic only. As shared before, this site is located within our highway corridor overlay. That overlay does have a streetscape requirement associated with that by ordinance, which includes a 10-foot wide planting strip street side, a 10-foot wide multi-use path, and then a 10-foot wide planting strip on the development side of the property. As you can see on the bottom of this screen, you see the improvements for streetscape along the entirety of the project's frontage on Wilkinson Boulevard. So to the left, you'll see the proposed development's streetscape, where they are proposing to have that 30-foot wide streetscape as envisioned, with the exception of they are requesting an alternative design for the location of the plantings within the street side streetscape. And I'll go into a little bit more about that alternative proposal on the next slide. They are still proposing to include plantings on the rear development side planting strip. And you can see those on the bottom of the screen as well as the section above. And just for your knowledge or convenience and comparison purposes, on the right you see a snapshot of NCDOT's proposed streetscape section along that project frontage. The development team has included on their plans to, after NCDOT's project is done, plant the trees within that 10-foot planting strip development side on the back side of the multi-use path that would be installed by NCDOT. As alluded to previously, the alternative location for the street side plantings is proposed to be within a centralized courtyard on campus That courtyard is proposed to contain 5 large maturing trees and 15 small maturing trees that would be in addition to the other trees required for the proposed development. This proposal is consistent with our comprehensive land use plan's vision for creating park-like open space with on-campus properties. And the proposed plan also includes a 30-foot type A buffer between the campus and the general residential zone that's adjacent to the property on the western portion of the site. This buffer requirement is being fulfilled both by utilizing the dense existing tree line that's already on the campus, as well as new parking lot perimeter plantings that would run along the perimeter of the parking shown on the image to the left. Again, in the area of tree save, this development is far exceeding Belmont's requirements by providing 35% of the site as tree save area. Our ordinance does require that developments incorporate and provide for greenways within new developments. Gaston College has agreed to grant the city an easement for the proposed Abbey Creek Greenway and has also provided for connection locations or potential connection locations on the site plans for the expansion of their campus that would allow and facilitate future connectivity for private trails onto the public greenway once constructed. They are seeking relief, which is partial relief, for the construction of the greenway itself. And before you at your table, I've distributed a letter from the applicant with more detailed information about that requested relief. It is noted in there that the proposed alignment for the greenway is across the creek from the targeted project area, and that access to the segment would be currently unavailable if constructed today. And just to demonstrate that graphically, the blue here is the location of the current floodplain, and so you can see the greenway alignment in relation to the yellow, which is the proposed building on the campus. Relief is also being requested in the area of pervious pavement. Again, this is another item that was included in the letter before you. Originally, when this item was presented to Planning Board, there was an alternative solution proposed to include pervious grass pave along the fire access lane instead of its required location in the ordinance in the parking lot area. But following Planning Board's discussion on this item and their support for potentially full relief, the applicant is requesting City Council's consideration of full relief of this requirement. Even if paved, the total built upon area of the site would be 20.5% of the site, which still falls underneath the 24% maximum for the critical watershed. On your screen, you see a proposed elevation that highlights the architecture for the new facility. It is proposed to be clad in brick, very similar to the existing structures on campus, with a front entry highlighted by metal panel accents as well as a glass storefront to showcase the technology that will be housed inside the facility. Because this is a conditional zoning request, it was also reviewed for consistency with our comprehensive land use plan. This site is identified for major institutional use, which is consistent with proposed, as well as encouraged to incorporate park and natural area place types, which we have gone over earlier in the presentation for consistency, overall with the goal of preserving key environmental features of the site and setting aside land for natural areas and open space. This site is also located within the Build a Better Boulevard plan, or the small area plan along Wilkinson, which promotes a multimodal corridor and encourages revitalization along that corridor. And so it is both staff's opinion and Planning Board's opinion that it would be consistent with the goals of economy and that it fosters a vibrant economy and improves workforce and economic development for textiles in our area, that it enhances community character, and that it helps to protect the natural environment as proposed. The applicant did hold 2 neighborhood meetings to discuss this project. Both were held on August 9th. One was held virtually at noon, and 2 people did sign in to learn more about the proposed project. After the applicant provided their presentation, there were no further questions asked. And the recording was added on the project website, or the city's project website, and staff has received no further questions or comments related to the proposed development after that was posted. The applicant also held an in-person meeting on the same day, August 9th, that evening at 6 p.m., and there was no one in attendance other than the development team. This item was heard by Planning Board on September 22nd, and Planning Board found that this request is reasonable and in the public interest, in that it enhances a high-quality institutional use and promotes workforce development, that it was consistent with the goals of the comp plan, again, in the areas of economy, community character, and the environment, and they unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning petition as conditioned. And so it is with that that I ask City Council to consider conducting the public hearing tonight, receiving all public comments, and also to consider the updates as provided by the applicant, again, and to modify the conditions as they went to Planning Board in the areas of pervious pavement and Greenway. And then, as a reminder, the next item would be the ordinance consideration after the public hearing. You're welcome.
A couple questions.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the current ordinance requires trees on the street side and trees on the development side of this path or sidewalk.
That is correct.
And they are proposing the trees on the development side are fine, but instead of putting the trees on the streetscape side, we're going to put them in the courtyard that we propose. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And in terms of the Greenway,
yes.
Is it my understanding that based on these updated conditions, they're fine with granting us the easement for the Greenway? They are asking not to have to construct it or make a payment in lieu thereof.
That is correct.
And why would they have to make a payment in lieu to begin with?
They would not have to make a payment in lieu. That is not a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
The requirement of our ordinance is that it's provided for by new development. And so that has been via construction.
Mm-hmm.
So payment in lieu was something that was considered at one point as a discussion item, but I'll let the applicant speak more to the feasibility and why they're asking for relief of that item.
Because it just seems to me like if it's not accessible at all, it's not part of the new construction. I'm happy to take the easement, to get the easement, but I'm not sure about, well, let me ask this then.
Sure.
Is staff on board with the revisions to the conditions proposed? No
Yes.
payment in lieu.
Staff is supportive of the request.
Okay, and that's good.
Why is staff supportive of that? Because it would stand to reason that at some point, if the Greenway is built, that section will also be built out. If they're not going to pay for it, who will?
Sure, and to clarify, staff doesn't normally make recommendations on payment in lieu amounts or financial matters.
Okay, well, that's not my question because that's off the table. What I'm
Right.
saying is it's part of the Greenway, that segment.
Correct.
Our ordinance was requiring them to build it. They're asking for relief of that.
Correct.
It's safe to assume then that if the Greenway is constructed from A to Z at some point, that segment will have to be constructed. If that segment is constructed, there's no payment in lieu, who will pay for it?
If that relief is granted, that would be the responsibility of the city if that project does move forward.
Okay. Now, we've got a plan along Wilkinson Boulevard that we've deviated quite a bit. The original plan was for 10-foot wide sidewalks. We have some of those. People have requested relief. So what we're going to have, or what we have now, is a sidewalk that is doing this. As we grant relief, we don't grant relief. So instead of a contiguous 10-foot sidewalk, we're going to have something that is looking like this. If we grant relief on the treescape on the street, others may ask for that, others may not.
Sure.
So we'll have the same situation there. We will have strips of plantings, strips of no trees, Do you see what I'm driving at? Is that it won't
Sure.
be contiguous. It's going to look odd if we enforce it with some people and don't enforce it with others.
Sure.
Because, I mean, that's the gateway into the city. I thought we had agreed at some point we want it to look a certain way.
Sure.
For clarification, we have not deviated from the width of the multi-use path on Wilkinson. The previous regulation was 12 feet wide. Council reduced that by text amendment to 10 feet wide, which we have required.
And that's what's proposed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well,
It
people
is. 10
people
foot is
have
proposed.
approached this in the past. Right there in front of Bilo, they wanted to reduce it to a 5 foot, which was looking like it was going to be granted, but they could not secure funding. So I mean, it's safe to assume that it's very possible we may get the same request. I just want it to be linear and look the same. That was the goal.
Sure. And they are requesting no relief in the width of either the grass strip, 10-foot grass strip, or the 10-foot wide multi-use path.
And that's the only request that's in terms of sidewalk width being presented to us tonight. Is that correct?
There's no request for relief in the area of sidewalk
Right.
width or multi-use path.
Exactly.
The request for the rezoning is 18 some plus acres.
It is the entire parcel, yes.
Okay, but did I understand you to say the buildable area that they'll be using is about 2.95, almost 3 acres?
That's correct. The proposed limits of disturbance to add this new building on campus is limited to just under 3 acres.
And if they were to do anything, whether it were to expand beyond the 41,500 square feet, or if they wanted to build a new building, would they have to come before the planning board and council again with an amendment to the conditional zoning?
Absolutely. So any major changes to the plan as proposed tonight would require an amendment to the conditional zoning.
And John Hoosler and Alan are here both. If they want to speak, ask any questions, or someone wants to ask any questions.
Sure, but I'd like to ask Tiffany some more questions, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to talk about pervious pavement
Sure.
a little bit, because I looked it up, because that's what I always told my students before asking me a question. And so that it seems like pervious pavement means it allows water to pass through. So what explain all that to me, because I don't quite understand it. And I know at the planning board they talked about what was the point of that requirement to begin with.
Right. So generally, my understanding of the origination of that requirement is to be mindful of the amount of impervious surface that we have and the water flow off of that impervious surface onto the remaining parcels, and or the water shedding from one parcel onto an adjacent parcel or into our creeks. And so the addition of pervious pavement was one way to be mindful of the fact that that water that's coming down, whether be via storm or just regular weather onto the site, that some of that be reabsorbed into the land itself. This site, again, only is proposing a built-upon area of just over 20%. So most of the site will continue to remain pervious and non-built upon. And so I believe that is the nature of the request. If the site was more densely being proposed for development, I do not believe planning board or staff would support that request.
And what would it look like?
They have like holes. It's like brick,
Yeah,
right? Where the water
it can
will
look
go.
different
It's a
ways.
different material.
Okay.
What was initially being considered in the fire access lane
Yeah.
was more of a grid type structure that would be filled with a gravel rock and then have grass planted on top of it, so that and the architect's here to speak and the civil is as well, so if I'm wrong on this, but so that aesthetically it may appear to be grass, but that the surface was hardened to allow for drivability for emergency services vehicles as needed.
Mm-hmm. And the updated request is don't even worry about the fire access lane, just waive it entirely.
Right. Well, so planning board in their discussion noted that based on their experience, the grass pave didn't necessarily result in the amount of perviousness that was likely anticipated when it was normally utilized on plans. And so in their discussion, they noted that they would be open to considering a request for relief.
And there's several individuals on the planning board that have experience with stormwater issues and drainage issues. That
is correct.
Okay.
Are you done, Jim, or did you?
I am, yes. that's-
Okay. Just
Thank
a quick question on the third access point, because, yeah, and I was at the P&Z meeting as well. That's a pretty narrow road, right? So
Yes.
is there any concerns from any of our public safety that could be an issue?
The feedback that I got is in an emergency, they're going to use whatever access they can get there the fastest, right? However, after evaluating that access and looking at that, which was triggered by this development site, it was noted that you're right. The current road is paved at about a 13-foot 6-inch width. And so that is why there's a recommendation to limit truck traffic on that road. And staff is also looking into what we need to do in order to update that on, which is a city street. Alice is a city street, to update it on the city street as well as having a condition for signage on the proposed development site.
Okay, so what would it primarily be used for? Is just another kind of overflow entrance and exit way?
Right, well, it could be used for a regular car to be going in and out of the site, or, I mean, if an emergency vehicle needs to access the site, they're gonna go to the quickest route to that. But we did want to make sure we were intentional to discourage larger vehicular traffic from utilizing 6th Street and Alice as a cut-through or detour from Wilkinson, and that primary vehicular traffic for trucks was on that improved access point along Wilkinson Boulevard.
Yeah, no, I only ask because I don't want it to become an issue, especially since it's a city street. There's someone's getting injured or something like that.
Sure.
The only other question I have, and I didn't see it in the notes, did we have any type of estimated valuation of what this part of the Greenway would be that we're foregoing?
Sure. So staff did reach out to the consultant and asked what, as designed today, what the cost would be. And with all the components added in, the estimated valuation of the segment on Gaston College campus totaled $110,500. And again, that includes grading, retaining walls, railings, as well as the trail itself. So it is a comprehensive snapshot of cost, but is, at the end of the day, still a cost estimate.
Mm-hmm.
How long is that segment? Do you know by any chance?
Sure, it's 340 linear feet.
And that segment is not included in the most recent budget that we looked at for this.
It in fact is. So the city's portion of the site was done and scoped out prior to this development application being filed, and so this has always been within the city's planned scope for the Greenway.
So we've always planned to build this? We were just hoping they would pay for it?
We've never pursued that they would pay for it because without a development application, this requirement would have never been triggered by the campus. So the city embarked on the design of the Abbey Creek Greenway well before this project was considered for expansion of the campus.
How did they arrive at that number, 110,000? I just did some quick math. When we were discussing this earlier, it seemed like the number per foot for this greenway was $800. And I'm coming up with 272,000.
Sure. I do not recollect where it was $800 a linear foot from previous conversations, but
Well, that was based on the overall projected cost of 2.6 million.
I think that might include the section that goes through like the swamp.
I was just about to say
area,
it could be
which
skewed.
was significantly more expensive than
Yeah.
the non-swampy areas.
I would also say that the project ordinance also includes design and engineering costs as well as construction costs. So the cost that was provided for the construction of the segment on the Gaston College parcel would have been for construction.
Okay.
John, you have anything to add, or Alan?
Did they sign up for public comment?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to come out of public hearing?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's go in and consider the approval of an ordinance, the Gaston College Library Renovation Center, a request to rezone 18.451 acres, located on 7220 Wilkinson Boulevard from institutional campus development to institutional campus district conditional living.
Well, Mayor, I want to make just a quick comment. I like this project. I mean, I've read through it. I think this is a good project. I'm struggling with the streetscape on Wilkinson Boulevard. I want it to look uniform. So I don't know that I want to grant the relief along Wilkinson Boulevard with the tree plantings. I don't want to end the possibility of ending up with kind of a hodgepodge along there as this council or future councils may or may not grant relief. I think it makes more sense just to hold the line on that from my perspective. Also, it's not a great deal of money, but I'm also not willing to transfer that debt to the citizens of Belmont on the Greenway. I mean, it's not a great deal of money when you consider the overall cost of the project, but I think that money should be somehow held in escrow or work something else out if this parkway comes to fruition. Other than that, I have no issue with the project. I've talked to some folks on the phone about it, I think, with your group, and it is very intriguing.
I also think this is a great project. I know they discussed at the planning board more in detail about what it all entails and sort of the crazy stuff they're going to be able to do. It sounded like really fascinating. And so I appreciate Councilman Turner's comments and understand them. I will, however, make a motion to approve as conditioned in the most updated requests for relief that we were presented today.
All in favor, say aye.
Well, we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Very good.
I would also.
Well, no, I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and support that. I mean, some things you don't like, but I think the overall benefit is there.
Yeah, this is going to be a really cool facility,
Be
providing like
It's gonna be great.
cutting edge technology for the fiber industry and
Absolutely.
expanding on what we currently have. It's going to be really
Real positive.
I would also make a motion to find this project a reasonable request and in the public interest and consistent with the goals of economy, community character, and the environment in the comprehensive land use plan and other adopted plans.
I agree. Thanks,
Second.
Jim. Okay.
All in favor?
All in,
You got a motion and a second. You want to vote?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
thank you. We're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to the
John Hooser
yes.
and Alan. Y'all, thank you so much for putting this project in Belmont. This is going to be a great project. Really do. It's going to be great. And appreciate you working with Tiffany.
I will make one comment with regard to that. It is exciting to see this. One of the reasons is one of the few things that caused the company my husband was involved in to be able to last as long as it did is that they made flame retardant yarn for baby sleepwear. So to think that we're doing something innovative, and that's exciting to see that it cycles back and we have a chance to do something. So that's great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right. Next item on the agenda is consider the approval of a resolution approving a lease with the Milliken Pictorial Museum, Pictorial History Museum, for a portion of the J. Paul Ford Center.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll present this item. Enclosed on page 106 is a resolution authorizing a lease of some office and storage space at the J. Paul Ford Center for Alan Milliken and his Pictorial Museum. This is something that came to the council, I think at a workshop, where council brought it up at a workshop, and you gave me direction to meet with Mr. Milliken and Art Shoemaker and negotiate a lease agreement for some space that we're currently just using for storage at the current recreation center. We still have programming and operations at the J. Paul Ford Center on Woodrow until the completion of the recreation center. And so when the recreation center is completed, we will move our operations from the Ford Center to the new rec center.
Right.
But there are some vacant office space and some areas where we just have our stuff being stored that we can easily move and have been, in anticipation of this, have been moving some of our equipment from the Ford Center to the CityWorks storage facility. So that's going to free up some space for Mr. Milliken to operate his museum and to store some of his collection at the Ford Center until he can find a long-term location for his pictorial museum, and until you determine what the future of the J. Paul Ford Center is going to be. So in meeting with Mr. Milliken and Mr. Shoemaker, I do have a lease proposal that is on page 107 of your packet for a one-year lease with monthly payments of $200, and this would be for business purposes for the office use of the pictorial museum, as well as storage space that we're currently have available for him. It will not impact our operations or the recreation programming that's currently going on at the Ford Center.
Yeah.
This is a similarly structured lease that we have with the Jonas Group, as well as the Montcross Area Chamber of Commerce. This would be, as I say, up to 1 year, which would give us time to complete hopefully will give us time to complete the recreation center, which is scheduled to be completed in April or May of next year, if we stay on schedule, and would allow for us to move our operations from the Ford Center to the rec center, and potentially free up space in the Ford Center for the full-on pictorial museum, if that is desired by both the City Council and Mr. Milliken, to have those discussions next spring. There was some question about whether or not Mr. Milliken would be able to live in the Ford Center as he currently lives in the Pictorial Museum on Catawba Street. Item 6 of the lease proposal says that the lease space may not be used as a residence or for residential or for residential purposes. So clearly he is not allowed to live there, but he can't operate the museum out of there in the interim.
And he can stay with us if it comes down to it.
Okay, thank you. So the action tonight is to consider approval of this resolution authorizing the city to enter into this lease agreement with the Milliken Pictorial History Museum.
Anybody?
If there's no discussion, I would motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion approved, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That moves us on to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. And consider the approval of a request by the Belmont Housing Authority to waive payment in lieu of taxes.
Thank you, Mayor. Would ask Erica Bobo, and the new executive director of the Belmont Housing Authority, and Nancy Pascal, the attorney for the Housing Authority, to make this request.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
How you doing?
I am here to request a waiver of our payment in lieu of taxes, but before I do that, I'm going to introduce you to our new executive director, Erica Bobo, and she's going to give just a quick update to council as to what's been going on with the Belmont Housing.
Good evening. I've met a couple of you. I've met Mayor Martin. The Belmont Housing Authority, if you aren't from Belmont, you may not know, it has been in existence since about 1975. We provide housing for low-income individuals. We have two sites. We have public housing, which is located at Flowers Court, and then there is a site, Myrtle Terrace, which is for elderly disabled. There's 32 apartments at Myrtle Terrace. There's 50 family units we call them units of apartments at Flowers Court. We are currently, both properties are currently 100% occupied. We have waiting lists, and we have, our rents are based on your income, and we're doing all types of things right now at Flowers Court. We received a emergency grant of a little over $2 million to replace all of our under slab plumbing on site. It was had not been replaced since the property was built. It was collapsing and failing. We have the project's moving along. We have so far completed 13 apartments, and we have 4 in progress. The project's slated to be finished by June of 23. We replaced our playground equipment recently, and our children are just enjoying the playground. That was something that was a major asset for our families. Flowers Court is, like I said, it is a family site. We have lots of children there. The Y partnered with Gaston County Schools, and they used our facility this summer as a feeding site for children during the summer to make sure that they had lunches. I have been the executive director only a short time, April 1st. So, but I have big plans. I have big plans for the Housing Authority. You know, I would love to see it grow, but I want to bring more resources to the community, to the residents. Things, things such as like wellness programs, literacy programs, budgeting, finances, financial classes. Just, I have a lot of ideas that I would like to, and I'd like to partner with some local resources to get these things done. We, as far as our site at Myrtle Terrace, again, like I said, it is 100% occupied, and our residents at Myrtle Terrace, they have activities all month long, all throughout the year, and they all seem very happy to be there. And that's, I just wanted to give you guys kind of an update on what was going on with the Housing Authority. And do you have any questions?
I have a.
Yes.
It's fortuitous that you were here. There was a young lady here during public comment that had some concerns and issues. I don't know if, I think Nancy was here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you were here.
Yes,
is that going to be addressed? Or, you know?
The assumption is that she resides, I guess, at one of these facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Let me respond to that. First of all, by matters of because of privacy
Yes.
issues, we cannot respond in full to the complaints. There is a complaint policy and procedure at the Belmont Housing Authority, and the resident is more than happy and more than willing. We are more than willing to entertain that complaint, go through the processes. We are governed by, of course, the federal regulations as to setting rents, and those rents are dependent upon income. And if there is an increase in income, then of course the rents go up. If there's a decrease, the rents go down. But her concerns will certainly be addressed during the complaint process.
Okay, we can't respond during public comment, but you all just happen to be here today,
Yes.
so I thought it might be worth
And
bringing
we've
up.
made notes, so
Okay,
yeah, we'll get back to it.
The other thing, would you furnish us a list at some point of people serving on the Housing Authority? I did until I was elected to be on council, and normally we, at that point, had annual reports about what was happening, and we have not. So if I would like to have that list so we are aware of who's involved.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go ahead and talk about who's on our board now?
I can. And you made a comment about annual reports. That is something that Nancy is going to address when we do speak about pilot. I plan to come before the board and give annual reports and make sure that everyone knows who is on our board. Currently, we do have 5 board members. I think that I know that Martha and Charlie have met a couple of them. Jeff Thompson is our board chair. He's been on the Board of Commissioners for the Belmont Housing Authority for about 20 years, maybe?
Long time.
He's been there a long time. And then we also have Matthew Lanning, Jeff Gibbons, Patricia Brannon, and Danielle Webb, who is our resident board member. That's who is currently serving on the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry. Any questions for Erica about the authority and its current operations?
Ma'am, I'm really sorry. This is not the time.
Yeah,
But
you can't.
hopefully you can speak to them after the meeting. I understand. Thank you.
We are before council this evening asking for a waiver of our annual pilot payments, payment in lieu of taxes. A cooperation agreement was entered into with the city of Belmont when the public housing was being built. And as part of that cooperation agreement, real estate or ad valorem taxes are waived because of that cooperation agreement. In lieu of the payment of taxes, there is a calculated amount that is to be paid each year unless it is waived by the city. Our firm has represented the Belmont Housing Authority for about 8 to 9 years, maybe longer. I don't know. It's through a competitive bid process. And we were unaware that this payment was not being made or was not being waived until it was brought to our attention by our auditors. And that's when we made the request via letter to the city of Belmont. This has happened before. It happened back in 2010. At that time, there was a request that the cooperative agreement be amended so that we did not have to ask for this waiver each and every year. The city of Gastonia did do that way back, and so not giving an excuse, but the executive director for the Gastonia Housing Authority became an interim director and part-time executive director for Belmont some years ago. I have to believe that he just did not, he thought that it was being automatically waived or it would not have been ignored for a 10-year period, which is what is presented to you today. Those amounts total a little over $40,000. It's $40,981, covering, I believe it's either 10 or 11 of the previous fiscal years. We would ask that the city of Belmont waive the payment in lieu of taxes. This money is utilized for operational expenses as well as capital needs. And there was a capital needs assessment done in the last year and a half that showed that the Belmont Housing Authority has approximately $2.5 million of capital needs. The federal government is not funding what needs to be funded for capital improvements. We were very fortunate to receive the $2 million emergency grant for the repair of the underslab plumbing, which would have just been disastrous. So I will not go any further other than to say you do have a chart that lays it out per year. It is a fluctuating amount because that depends upon the subsidy that is received by the authority from the federal government. Be happy to answer any questions. And and you said I was going to mention this, but it is now calendared. Our fee accountant, who we contract with, has it on his radar, and we will be here in years to come on an annual basis asking for that waiver unless the cooperative agreement is amended in the future.
Thank
And
you.
we apologize for not being here before.
It's okay. Do we have any
And
questions?
just for the record, so these are fees that were not collected that are being waived. This isn't any sort of money that we previously collected that's coming out of the city. It's money that was never collected going back 12 years.
Correct.
That you're just asking us to waive.
Right. We are not asking for the city to pay us anything or to refund us anything.
Were we aware that these payments were not being made?
I was not aware, no.
I just thought it was interesting that their audit caught it, but ours didn't. But yeah.
The last record that we have was from 2009.
Okay.
Martha and I were on the council last time we made it.
Yeah, I read the minutes.
Saw that,
Yeah,
yes.
it was fun.
There's always been a very unusual relationship there about whether we have any authority, which we really didn't particularly. And so that's one reason I wanted to be on the housing authority, and then 4 months after that, I was elected, so I never did get all the details of how all that works, because it is a whole different set of rules and regulations.
It is. It is a whole different ballgame.
So as part of this agreement, we were supposed to, I'm not sure I'm reading this right, we were supposed to receive annual reporting beginning in 2010.
Correct.
We have never received that annual reporting.
I know that there has been, that we have not, I don't believe that there's been annual reporting. I believe Mr. Foster, who was our previous executive director, did come before council maybe 1 or 2 times during that time frame to update, but there was not a request for the waiver of pilot, and I'm confident it was not done on an annual basis. That will be rectified.
That's why I requested that they come before you on an annual basis so that it's fresh when we have new
Because
staff. and new
certainly
members.
they've never come since we've been here.
Yeah,
We've
I
been here
didn't even
since-
know this was a thing until about a week ago. So
And then what do the reports entail? Is it just asking for the waiver, or is there detailed information that we receive?
We can report whatever the council wishes to hear. I would imagine it would be something along the lines that that Erica has presented tonight, just what has occurred over the last year. You know, whether there's any new construction or renovation, any new policies that may come down from the federal government, things along those lines.
And then just maybe directed to you, Adrian. So kind of in the update, it says foregoing of almost $41,000. Technically, we never had that in any of our budgets. So it's not, it's, the impact to us is non-existent.
Correct.
I would say, I know this isn't a civil matter, but if it were, and as Nancy well knows, like the statute of limitations would have long since expired on a lot of this. So it's, you know, that's why I have no real issue with it, because like, you know, from our perspective, we slept on our rights for a lot of it. So,
Well, I don't have an issue with the waiver per se. I mean, for me, there's 2 problems here for us. We were supposed to be getting annual reports. We weren't receiving them. Apparently, we didn't know that. We should have known that, but we did not. We were supposed to be receiving payments on the credit side for 10 years, theoretically. We weren't receiving them, and we didn't know that either. So, I mean, process here is what concerns me more than the dollar amount. I mean, there's obviously gaps in how we're doing some things that I think need to be addressed.
The other thing I'll mention too, since we're all talking about the unusual pieces of this, when I was part of the housing authority, Jeff Thompson was here, and he was in the position he was. He has moved out of the area years ago, so it's very unusual to me that you're going to still be that involved with the housing authority. Not that it's good or bad, but just we have a lot of strange pieces of the puzzle here.
yeah.
I mean, does that pose any kind of problem, having an off-site chairman?
No, it does not. And I did research that when Jeff moved from the city of Belmont. And that is, there's no requirement that he live in the city. And he has served ably
Long time.
and for a long time. And I believe that I'm not sure how much longer he's going to serve. I don't want to speak for Mr. Thompson. But I believe he is waiting until there are some other more experienced board members there ready to fill his shoes.
who appoints that board?
The mayor. It's a mayoral
Oh.
appointment.
Okay.
And I will be writing you, Mr. Mayor, because we've gotten 1 or 2 appointments that need to be made.
Very good. Thank you. Okay.
I'll make a motion to waive the payment in lieu of taxes for the fiscal years 2010 through 22, conditioned on any future waiver requests being made, along with an annual report each successive year.
I'll second that.
Got a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, next item on the agenda is the request for partnership Carolina Thread Trail signage. Tiffany got that one too, huh?
This one's mine as well.
Got a roll.
All right, so this item is a request for partnership from the Carolina Thread Trail regarding their new signage program. And just wanted to give a little bit of context to this request. So the map on the screen is the adopted Carolina Thread Trail Greenway connections here in Belmont, and then highlighting a few of the amenities that those corridors are proposing to touch, whether future or current. And as you see here, mainly in Belmont, that request starts at Rocky Branch, connecting Cramerton to Belmont at the westernmost portion. And the signage request before you tonight is specifically for this segment here in red that would lead from Rocky Branch Park into downtown Belmont and up to Park Street. As you can see, there are other future segments of the Carolina Thread Trail. One would be the connector to the future Abbey Creek Greenway, as well as the Belmont Rail Trail and potentially the future light rail corridor. But those requests or those segments are not included in the signage program request before you tonight, as their construction date is to be determined. And so this is really focused on signage for the amenities we already have in place here in Belmont. So again, that signage would lead through where the City of Belmont municipal limits starts in Rocky Branch Park, along Woodrow Avenue, turning south at Main Street, and then turning at Catawba Street, and again ending at the intersection of Catawba and Park or Keener. Belmont, or the Carolina Thread Trails signage program includes 4 different signage types. Trailhead signs, but none are currently included within the proposed segment. Intersection signs, assurance markers, and those are the ones that are placed every quarter mile that would allow people to know they're still on the right track. And assurance markers would also allow Belmont the opportunity to display our logo. That is an optional item and does ask for a financial commitment above the request tonight of $65 each flag. There are 2 within the proposed segment area. And then lastly, stencils that would be placed on sidewalk connectors. And so overall, within the signage request being made by the Carolina Thread Trail includes 3 intersection signs, 2 assurance markers, and 15 stencils. The Carolina Thread Trail is here tonight, but they are requesting Belmont's 50-50 partnership on sharing those costs, which would equate to a $3,330 cost share request from the Thread Trail to the City of Belmont to support their signage program. If Belmont did want to pursue adding their logo to the assurance flags on that signage, that would be an additional $130, bringing the total for both items to $3,460. This is a request directly from the Carolina Thread Trail, so they are in the room tonight, and I would invite them up to be at the podium to answer any questions that council may have related to the request.
Right behind you.
Perfect. And it looks like they are bringing 2 members. So Brittany has been primarily working on the signage program. We also have Ashton Lamb, who's a representative from the Thread Trail and has spoken with us about the Thread Trail numerous times before. So you may recognize both of them. So I'll turn it over.
Thank you.
Is there any questions that we can answer?
Maybe a question to you, Adrian. Is this something that, I know it's small, minuscule amount in comparison to some of our expenses, but is this something we have to do a budget amendment to, or is this something we have pre-approved back in March?
I don't believe this was included in the budget, but we certainly have money in our general fund budget to absorb this.
No, I understand. I just, again, with some of the concerns with the audit stuff, just want to make sure
We have a $16 million general fund. We can afford $3,460.
$3,460.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. How big are your largest signs that will be put out in Belmont?
So eventually, when we're talking about Abbey Creek Greenway, we talk about a trailhead sign. Those are the largest. They stand at 84 inches tall from the ground. And the signs, I believe, are 52 inches by 54 inches.
And those are trailhead?
Those are trailhead signs.
Okay.
And they show the network at large. So it's not just that trail. We're trying to show people
the larger corridor network that we're trying to connect people into downtown Charlotte or even over to Gaston.
So
What-
people
what
will
would-
see them.
Right.
What would be the largest sign on a street, per se?
We don't do the signs on the street. Actually, let me correct myself. It's just the intersection signs. And those are far smaller than our trailhead.
Do you know what they are? I don't know. I can go back there, but I'm not sure.
Keep going. There, you can see at least what it looks like from your average.
72 inches.
All right, these would be on the streets,
Yes,
intersections,
correct,
intersecting streets.
correct.
Okay. The only reason I asked, I mean, we had a parking sign discussion, I think, a while back, and people had concerns of too much signage downtown. You know, we've got wayfinding, we've got all sorts of banners and flags. Gets a little confusing at some point to have all of that.
We got to get one of those signs that has like a million different like.
The
Like
arrows.
maps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have about 4 slots there, and we've already discussed with staff about including the River District, saying downtown Main Street, because we want to make sure people hit the highlights on the thread trail.
Okay, so this is for one segment, the request to partner in that amount.
Correct.
I'm guessing there will be continuing requests as it builds out
That's
for partnering.
And I don't need to have our logo put on them. I don't think.
That was specifically in Rocky Branch Park, where you go from the city of Cramerton to the city of Belmont, and it's specific to just let them know like what city you're in.
You're now in Belmont.
Yeah. So that's literally what that was.
I'm not really a fan of the stenciling. I've never really seen that done well anywhere I've seen it. It always just seems to get kind of like over time, like covered in crud and it fades. I don't know. In general, I don't know. I don't really feel like this is a priority right now. I mean, I'd be happy to discuss it as part of the budget process, but I don't know. If you just ask me on the street if we need more trail signs, I'll be like, no. But this is my thoughts.
So when it comes to the stenciling, it's a good point you bring up. We actually had our pilot program in Cramerton and Kannapolis, where we actually paid for very expensive vinyl that was very detailed to help lead people along the right path to get to the next segment. Those did not last. They ripped up in less than 3 years, and they were supposed to last 7. We actually did some experiments with our sign makers, and they've discovered road paint was the best. And we didn't want to go with a whole bunch of different colors. We thought white, clean, keeps it simple, and that was actually the best option. It will last the longest.
Yeah. When you say that, is that field tested?
Yes.
Is that the same paint that they might put down for, or the appliques that they put down for crosswalks?
Correct. They were using the same type of paint, just because of its durability.
So what's the life cycle on that?
They said at least 10 years, but I don't, it depends on the amount of foot traffic as well.
Our other ones lasted about maybe a year and a half. So this is a lot better with 10 years. That pilot was a great test.
Okay.
And
So we'll make a motion.
just so you all know too, we're making the same sort of request based on mileage to all of the Gaston County communities and Gaston County itself. So this isn't just the Belmont thing. This is trying to represent that, hey, your portion of Thread Trail is part of a greater 400-mile network of trails in the region. So this is something not just the Belmont thing. We're doing this to Mount Holly, Bremerton, everybody that's existing.
Have they already committed the other cities? Have you met with the other cities yet?
We've met with Mount Holly. They've already submitted their
Signed.
MOU and signed. Cramerton is in the process of signing
McAdville
theirs.
signed.
McAdville has signed.
Yeah.
As long as Kannapolis, Concord, Cabarrus County.
Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve this expenditure.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Okay.
Well,
Very
I'm
good.
a no.
Oppose, you need to oppose.
Huh?
Yes, for oppose.
pose.
No.
You opposed? You opposed?
2 opposed.
Okay, we got 3, 4. Okay. Thank you.
3-2.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we got on the agenda. Approval of a financing agreement for fire department Scba equipment.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an item that came before you at last month's meeting, and you asked to table it to this month. This actually came to you as 2 pieces of equipment, and you asked to separate it out. A street sweeper was originally being requested for financing, and you've asked that we wait on that. But you did want to hear a financing arrangement for fire department SCBA's, which are self-contained breathing apparatus, right? This was requested as a top priority for the fire department in this year's CIP during the budget process. The current Scbas or SCBA's are about 15 years old and are no longer meet the NFPA standards. So that was why it was a top priority to get those replaced. You see the breakdown in your packet as to how expensive they are. It's a total cost of $287,232.42. There is money in this year's budget to pay cash for that, which was our plan. But we had an opportunity to finance it instead at an interest rate of 2.74% over 59 months, which means that our out-of-pocket expense for the current fiscal year, instead of $287,000, would be $30,868.99 this year, and then $61,737.98 in the subsequent years until we pay off that debt. You asked whether or not these were needed. You have multiple firefighters and the fire chief here that can answer questions about the need for this, but we do recommend that we finance this. We did talk to United Financial because of the delay in the month. We actually ran past the time for it approved. They said that this rate and these terms are still valid, but we do need, if you approve this, we would need to sign it, I believe, Kevin, by Wednesday, 2 days. Yes.
Most important thing, it's a safety issue too.
Yes, this is much needed equipment for the safety of our firefighters.
I want to make a comment. I'm a fire chief's daughter, and I remember Scott packs, and if we're talking about something important, this is the most important piece of equipment you can have for a firefighter. Not all of our buildings are sprinkled, and if we don't have that, then we have people going in, and they need to be properly protected.
You're right.
Have we already purchased this?
We have ordered them, yes, sir.
There's a long lead time that you have to
Well,
do this to
yeah,
order.
so,
Yeah.
well, I understand that. I guess I was just getting at is whether it's, I mean, the decision isn't really whether to buy it, it's whether to finance it.
To pay cash or to finance it, yes, sir.
Okay, because I know that was kind of a question at the last meeting. It seemed that we did not know whether we had purchased it or not, but.
I think we still have the opportunity to cancel the order, but I would not be in favor of
Well, I'm
that.
not suggesting that.
And I do want to make it clear, I think, just from the context purpose of is it needed was based off of the comments with inventory. I don't think any of us want to put our firefighters at risk.
Yeah.
I think it was just, at the time, that answer couldn't be satisfied to council, so that's just, if I'm recalling, is where that came about.
Or was it needed instantly versus
Correct.
March?
Because I don't want the perception here to think that we don't care. I mean, we do. It's just now we understand, I guess, that it is needed. But again, I do appreciate everyone coming here, but I don't want you to think that we were going to vote this down. I don't think that that's an accurate perception.
No, yeah.
Well, look, the discussion really kind of centered around, I think we had concerns about our finances at the time, and the question was posed to the interim director, are these needed right now? He was unable to answer that question because he was so new to the job, so it was deferred until he could get clarification, which I'm assuming he did, and is now of the opinion that it is a necessary addition to their equipment. Is that a fair assessment? Okay. So that's where we are.
What's driving the change? Because I know in the CIP plan, we initially planned to pay this with cash. So what is driving the desire to finance it?
To instead of spending $287,000 this year, to only spending $31,000 this year.
Okay, but
We can afford to pay cash for it, which was our initial plan. But we had an opportunity to finance it while interest rates are still low, so we recommend that. But
Well, how does that affect our, because then we had a long conversation during the budget process about our debt management policy, that we were bumping up real close to that.
With the recreation center loan and a loan for the Abbey Creek Greenway, I believe we were hitting about 11.9, if not 12%. This would only be $30,000. This would because we haven't taken that debt on, we would still be below the 12% threshold.
So at the end
I can get you the exact number.
So at the end of this fiscal year, assuming everything goes well with the rec center, and we agree to finance the Abbey Creek Greenway, would be under 12%.
I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I did not look at that today, but my recollection from the budget discussion was that we were at 11 point, with those two big loans for the rec center and the Abbey Creek Greenway.
Yeah.
We were going to be at 11.9 or slightly over 12 for this fiscal year. And then we have debt that rolls off in subsequent fiscal years and we go back down below.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this loan of the debt service of just under $31,000 will not put us over our 12% threshold.
So spreading it out over 5 years helps keep us under our threshold.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But then does that take up capacity if we need to get something else later down the road? Like, I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is like the plan was to pay cash and now we're financing it. And
it would take up $31,000 of that capacity this year and $61,000 of that capacity next year.
Yeah.
Does that number hold through the life of the loan? Is it 61?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, it's a safety issue too.
No,
Yes, sir.
Well, and I don't think we're arguing whether we're going to buy it
Whether
or
to
not.
pay for it in cash or
Cash or
pay for it through
financing.
financing.
Yeah.
Well, we have to finance people here. What do you think is reasonable, to go ahead and pay cash, or do you think it would be better to do the loan?
Well, I mean, if you look at it from a loan perspective, if we can secure it, the whole issue is why we're not doing that with the rec center is because we can't secure it right now. I would say we should probably finance this because, again, with the concerns with our current cash constraints, if there are cash constraints, we'll understand that during the next workshop. But that's just my 2 cents. It's relatively low interest rate as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the argument is if we have cash restraints that we're unaware of, this spreads the pain over 5 years and doesn't put us behind the 8 ball, even though it's a small amount, relatively.
yeah, I mean, that's the main benefit I could see from doing this is that it would free up cash.
But you're concerned about reaching the ceiling that we self-imposed on ourselves to our debt ratio, right?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because I know we were getting real close to that, and there was, I mean, some conversation of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing to be doing that. So, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's not costless to get the loan because you're paying interest on the loan.
Yeah.
At the same time, your cash is worth less every day. But I don't know. It's probably a wash either way.
By the end of the life cycle, yeah, because we're just focused on like the current situation of paying that out.
Yeah, I guess what's just making me kind of hesitate is just the whole, everything being up in the air with this rec center just makes me real nervous about taking on debt. You know, but at the same time, I do see the value in freeing up the cash. So, you know, that's kind of the battle I'm having in my head is, you know, that.
Well, I mean, I think what you have to resolve, or we all have to resolve, is it better to have the cash on hand for unforeseen consequences?
Sure.
Or is it better to spread the debt out over 5 years, which may impact our 12% or won't impact our 12% cap?
That's a pretty good interest rate.
And Councilman Seelinger, apologize for not having that when you asked, but during the budget workshops we said that for the debt service, the total debt service this year was going to be 11.8% of expenditures, which included the Recreation Center debt and the debt on the paving program, but not the Abbey Creek Greenway.
Okay.
So if you choose to proceed with Abbey Creek Greenway, that would affect the debt threshold, but you could always wait till next year. That's just in the current fiscal year. So we would, when we take on the rec center loan, we will be at a little bit under 11.8%. So this would not put us, this $31,000 will not put us over 12%. So it would be consistent with your policy.
Should we recall that Abbey Creek ordinance? Because again, I agree. I mean, I don't want to go above the threshold we set, but I also don't want a situation. I understand that they're a little bit different from the rec center in Abbey Creek, but again, I don't want another situation where we're committing to X amount of dollars and then next thing we know, we've spent millions of dollars on the project out of cash.
Well, I will tell you right now, I'm not going to support the Abbey Creek Greenway and spending that money, particularly in light of our current situation. I want the dust to settle and get a very clear picture of our finances. So if that factors into the logic of whether to finance or pay cash for this, if that helps, I mean, that's 1 of 5 votes, but philosophically, I can't support that right now, considering our situation.
I would appreciate it, though, if you would not use the word idiotic when you talk about either
Well,
the
I think
concept or the financing.
I think we're getting sort of far afield
We
from
are.
where we're at.
We are.
And I think we should focus on this.
Well,
and I understand what you're saying.
But I mean, the door was open to walk through. It's part
Yes.
of, it's
And I
part
And
of
I
walked
would've-
through as well, and
our
I
debt.
apologize.
2.74% interest rate. That's pretty good interest rate.
That is a good interest rate.
It is.
I mean, I would make the decision based on what is right now, because I think your concerns about the Abbey Creek Greenway in the current situation are probably shared. And so,
Well, and again, I was just
yeah.
not trying to open the door to a debate. I'm
Yeah.
just mentioning that might be something we want to look into in the future.
Yes, and I think we can look into it at the appropriate time, but for the present purposes, I think we should stay and focus on this. And, you know, I think we can address that issue when it's time to address that issue. I think we're all share similar concerns, but, you know, I'll make a motion to approve the financing as
second.
presented.
I'll say it.
Second.
Richard second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Now you can be safe. All right. Consider the approval of a job description for a fire chief position. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. In your packet on page 137 and 138 and 139, information about a fire chief position. As you know, our recently retired fire chief was a part-time staff person, and with his departure, we feel that we are ready for a full-time fire chief to lead our fighters in our fire department. Chad Hawkins has reached out to the city of Gastonia and got their job description for a fire chief. We have edited that a little bit for our formatting purposes and for Belmont's needs, but the job description that's in your packet is based on the Gastonia fire chief job description, and we ask that you approve that job description and authorize that position so that we can fill that full-time fire chief position. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions?
Well, just to play devil's advocate, I mean, in the packet here, somewhere I was looking for it, I can't find it. It was said that that this is an outdated model, what we currently have, I believe. All right, again, to play devil's advocate, why is it an outdated model? You know, what I've seen is our fire department is our insurance scores have continually gone down. What is it?
ISO.
ISA, there you go. ISA ratings have continued to gone down. We had a ladder truck that was financed, I think, through grants that were sought by the fire chief. What is systemically, I mean, I'm not pro or con, I'm just trying to vet it. What is systemically wrong with the way we're doing it? Because it seems like we're putting out fires, we're doing the things that we need to do. I mean, we're basing, I guess, salary and model on a much larger city as well.
We're basing the job description on a much larger city. We're basing the salary on the city of Belmont.
Okay.
I'll address that question to some extent since I was the fire chief's daughter. We were very fortunate to have an unusual model because basically Far Yarns gave us Chief Altice whenever he needed to be here. So he was more than part-time. So if we're looking at having somebody take that position, it needs to be full-time. My dad was the volunteer chief in Lincoln back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And at that point, they decided to make it a full-time position. So he resigned his full-time position because he felt like that was so important. So we are behind the times, so to speak, just because we were fortunate to have an unusual situation.
All right. Well, I mean, notwithstanding, I mean, a rather comprehensive explanation from Councilman Stowe. I mean, I did actually pose the question to the city manager.
So we have a full-time professional fire department. The fire prevention and the fire service is more and more complicated. I think all of our departments deserve to have a full-time department head, including our fire department.
Right.
Chief Davis is here and can answer more details about the day-to-day activities, but we do need to have a full-time fire chief to oversee the fire department.
No question about it.
All right. So
I don't know that we're going to get a part-time fire chief.
All right. So then it's your contention that the city will be better served with a
Yes.
full-time fire chief.
That's why I recommended it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So do you need a motion to approve this job description?
Yes, and to
I'll make
authorize
a
that
motion to
position.
approve the job description for fire chief.
Do I hear a second? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Don't forget we added the ETJ
I know.
discussion.
Got it here. All right. ETJ resolution from the consent agenda.
And I'd like to ask our planning and zoning director, Shelley DeHart, to come and present the process on the ETJ relinquishment. As I mentioned, this came to us as a discussion at the retreat back in January. And we've been working with Gaston County staff as to the process if you want to relinquish the ETJ. Those of you that have been on the council a while may remember County Commissioner Tracy Philbeck came and spoke to you about the unconstitutionality of the ETJ several years ago. So this is not a new issue.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, the ETJ
Yeah, you would
is
remember it if you've been
the
here.
ETJ is kind of this weird planning and zoning thing that we have, but this was, like I say, this is the next step in the process to consider relinquishing it. But I turn it over to our planning director.
Thank you. So we look back at our notes to remind ourselves the initiation of this project. So what I found is back in December of 2021, at a planning board meeting, it was one of our discussion items, and we presented the idea, talked about the pros and cons, and actually there was a lot of good feedback in that discussion. It was quite a discussion that evening about going forth with a project like this. And then we presented it to the city council this past January at the retreat. I reviewed the minutes from Centralina that monitored and that's not the right word for them, but handled the meeting and did find the discussion item in there with a direction of process for pursuing a relinquishment project. So that brought us to adding it to the city's, the planning department's work program for the year. I assigned the project to Alec Robinson, who's here tonight, to provide some additional information. He has been working with Gaston County to vet out the process. The county is responsible for assigning its own zoning classification to parcels that are relinquished. They have 60 days to do so once we get through the process, so it has to be a coordinated effort. They've indicated to staff that they are assigning classifications as similar as possible to Belmont's classifications within the ETJ area today. So with that, I'm going to tag team Alec Robinson so he can share a little more information about the ETJ, where it came from, pros and cons, and some background.
So, you may have heard this before, but we may have a new audience listening tonight. ETJs were established by the General Assembly, and the first instances I have seen of it in Gaston County go back to 1972, when several municipalities established their ETJs. The rationale was to give cities the ability to control zoning past their corporate limits. In our case, this based on our town size, it was a mile back then. I'm going off of memory here, so bear with me. So, and it was so that we could, if we chose to annex in the future, we would annex areas that had similar zoning. In our case, it was Gaston County had not yet established countywide zoning, so we had zoning authority to that 1 mile limit from 72 to 92. In our county, we are late to the game. Most every municipality has released all or some of their ETJs. The notable exceptions are Belmont and Cherryville. I think Mount Holly did a partial release. Pretty sure Gastonia did the same. But if y'all have questions about who did partial releases, we can get back to you on that. ETJ is a conundrum for us. So you have residents in the county that are subject to our zoning. They have to come here for zoning permits, for home additions, home alterations, pools, outbuildings, etc. And in exchange for that, they get the ability or the lack of the ability to vote in municipal elections. Is some of the comments that you might hear in that vein. So it's confusing for property owners. The other part of the formula is that because our community beautification ordinance is in the municipal code, we don't have code enforcement authority in the ETJ. And that probably presents for staff the biggest issue, the biggest problem. County residents will call us for enforcement of tall grass and weeds, junk automobiles, unkept premises, hoarders, if you want to use that term, just the unsightly problems that exist out there. So,
is there any remedy to that? You say it's in our municipal code. Can that be amended to where in any way that we can get control of those? Some municipalities have done so. I don't know the mechanics of it, but if you're interested, we can look into that. So, as Shelley mentioned, because of
considerations in which the General Assembly was looking at making municipalities, Adrian, if I'm saying this right, extend water and sewer into the ETJ, we as others thought we might be best served by abandoning it. I don't really want to get into the detail that we did at the time. There you go. Thank you. So that shows. I thought we had 2 slides. Thank you. That shows those that have done it to date. Lowell being the last. There another one? This is the process. The county asked us to adopt a resolution to start the process. So we've not, that's what we're being asked to do on the consent agenda. Having received that, after having received that, the county would, we would come up with a timeline for the county that would work concurrently with their boards. Our planning board would consider the request. It would then go to city council. I had a timeline that I worked out with county staff. November 17th, Belmont Planning Board, if we were going to hold the schedule. November 17th, Belmont Planning Board, December 5th, Belmont City Council and Gaston County Planning Board, and December 13th, Gaston County Commissioners meeting. That is not set in stone. We were waiting for the authorization through this resolution. There would be notifications on our end, certainly at the city council meeting. If you wanted to direct us, we would do the same by first-class mail to the property owners. Last slide. So it's approximately 1,100 parcels and about 1,500 acres. Is there a map? Is there a map on there? So it's the purple area is shown here. It's, as you see, scattered. There's area to the west that's Peach Orchard, the northwest, that's Peach Orchard, around the Stuart Cramer Middle School, area to the northeast, which is primarily Browntown and down to the river. There's the central part, which is around Ewing Drive, the Abbey Farm, part of, or east of R.L. Stowe Road. There's a little piece to the west that's around Coventry Court, and then to the south it's Bowen, Bellwood, Horsley, Leaper, and around Gaither. To the straight line at the very south, that's the old AT&T right-of-way. So it's about 1,500 acres, 1,100 parcels if we'd go the total abandonment. And to reiterate, we're asking you to authorize a resolution to commence the process.
Alex?
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm going to lead off with questions because I asked this to be moved. One of my concern was, I mean, to me, ETJ, okay, so we've got the city proper. To me, ETJ has always meant outside the city proper, which technically it is. But when you look at that map, we've got pockets within Belmont. I mean, acreage within Belmont. My concern is, do I or we want to cede control of that which is in the city proper to county zoning? I mean, you say at some point we may be asked to provide water and sewer to the ETJ, which looks like it's mostly in Belmont, more or less right now, or internal. So we've got one before us right now on Nixon Road who is in the ETJ requesting to be annexed, and we'll have to provide them sewer and water anyway. So these buildable lots, same scenario is probably going to play out. Some developers are going to buy them, request annexation. We give them sewer and water. I guess my issue is I'm not sure that I want to relinquish control of that which is within the city proper to an outside entity. That's just my concern. That's why I wanted to hear a little bit more about it, because admittedly I don't have my head fully wrapped around the implications, and I don't want the rule of unintended consequences down the road to come into play for us, which may or may not happen, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, if the primary concern is confusion or code enforcement, and there's a way we can fix that, I think I'd rather explore that first than do this, because I mean I get the feeling that once we do this, it's very hard to take it back. So it's one of those decisions that once you make it, you make it. So I'd prefer to be a little bit if there are other alternatives to solve these problems that don't involve us surrendering our regulatory authority. I think that makes more sense strategically for us. Especially, I mean, look, some of these parcels touch South Point Road. And, we've already heard some concerns about development down in that part of town. So, and I don't know that I necessarily trust the county to give development down there the same care and attention that we do. So.
What do the people in the ETJ think, I wonder? Do we have any idea whether they prefer to stay in the ETJ or relinquish?
That would be a guess on my part if they were asked, do you want to be voluntarily annexed into Belmont? I have a good idea of what most of them would say.
Well, I don't want you to speculate.
And I'm sorry, this came up late in the day. I need to find out for certain in my mind that Gaston County has not undertaken to completely flip and decide to do enforcement in our ETJ. I have heard that, but since this was on a path on my mind that was going to culminate in abandonment, I didn't look into that. I can and will. Their position flatly was, you're in Belmont's ETJ, we're not going to enforce it. I always told people, but when I had to give them that negative answer on our part, call your commissioner. You pay Gaston County property taxes. You're entitled to services based on payment of those taxes, and Gaston County should do community beautification enforcement in county areas, regardless of our ETJ.
Then the county commissioners say, "Oh, well, that's a Belmont issue."
Yeah.
Because I've seen that.
Well,
I don't think on beautification, but on something else.
Well, I don't even know that this will necessarily even solve that problem, because all these people are still going to have Belmont addresses. I mean, some of them are right in the middle of town. So, if the county doesn't already understand what their role and responsibility here is, I don't know that this is necessarily going to make them see the light either.
So we bring this back to a future workshop when we find out the information about the code enforcement to see what avenue that is. So right now, just table this is a suggestion.
Well, do we need to table it to a specific date, Parks?
You can do either, but that.
We can table it indefinitely?
Yeah.
Well, I'd
move the table indefinitely.
I'll second that.
Yeah. And so you do want us coming back at a workshop
Oh,
to
yeah.
discuss it further, because there are some implications, whether it's, you bring up some valid points about land undeveloped or developers, but some of our ETJ are developed communities. And then if there's legislation that requires that if they're in our ETJ, we extend services to them, there are implications to that as well. Usually when something's annexed in, the developer is responsible for building the infrastructure and doing that extension, any upgrades to the system. In this case, that would not be the same situation. So there are some implications on various things that we probably should have a longer discussion about.
And then I think Alec also brought this up. I'd be interested to see the split. Did Mount Holly, for example, just get rid of developed ETJs, or did they keep undeveloped?
Right.
Because I'm starting to think in my mind that would make sense if I'm going to vote on this. Is okay if it's already developed, okay, release. But if it's undeveloped, I'm going to want to keep that.
Strategically, yes.
Yeah.
We'll be glad to bring that information back to you.
Okay.
Well, there's been a motion made to table indefinitely, which has been seconded, so.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. What do the committee reports?
Thank you. I was trying to find where we were, make sure
Yeah.
we had covered everything on the consent agenda and the regular agenda. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the next section are the reports. You've got the Board of Adjustment report, which is the minutes, the draft minutes from the September the 8th Board of Adjustment meeting. You've already heard the Finance Director's report, and so I will give a brief manager's report. And I've got a slide for that, Shelley, if you, or whoever's got the remote. I mentioned earlier during the work session that we're coming into a busy season for events. So I'll let you know the Cycle NC, which is a bicycle race from the mountains to the sea, is stopping in Stowe Park tomorrow. So there'll be a lot of people downtown. Looks like the weather's going to be great for that. There'll be some activities in the park that you've already approved for that. Our Thursday Night Pops concert is underway. We have 2 more in October, on this Thursday the 6th and next Thursday the 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. We've got movies in the park coming back. The Farmers Market is coming back October the 20th. Boo Fest will be Saturday, October the 29th from 2 to 7. We took care of this earlier in your special meeting. We're going to try to schedule interviews with the design firms for the City Hall renovation project on October the 24th, Kevin, starting at 4 o'clock. Also, I want to thank all of our staff for their work last week with the pending hurricane, tropical storm, what ended up not being a huge event, but certainly good training for us. And we did have some trees that fell, and we had some unsafe situations that we all worked really hard. Y'all all worked really hard together to make sure that our residents were safe. So thank you all for that. I will note that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and our police department are selling badges to raise money for the Hope United Gaston to provide crucial services and support for survivors of domestic abuse. So please see the police department if you're interested in helping with that. Also, I wanted to give you an update on 310 Todd Street. We've talked about that in a workshop earlier this year. This is the situation where we have a city sewer line underneath a piece of property where the property owner wanted to build a house. We could not issue the permit because you can't build a house on top of a sewer line. The property owner appealed our decision to the Board of Adjustment. Board of Adjustment upheld staff's decision, although that came at a cost to the city for defending the staff. That case is now being appealed. The Board of Adjustment's decision is being appealed to Superior Court. So that's sort of one track with that project. The other track is what to do about a sewer line that's running across private property that was put in decades ago, and what is our obligation, or what can we do to relocate that sewer line. So I'd ask our city engineer, Jerry Hatton, to come and give you an update on that infrastructure project and a proposed resolution for relocating that sewer line while not adversely impacting all the other utility customers that are connected to it.
Pass this on the big screen.
Thank you.
What I've got is calculation study. The information I've been able to find out from Public Works is we knew that there was this first exhibit shows you sewer that cuts diagonally across this property. We knew that was there, but that sewer was had roots in it and everything else. So Public Works hired a firm to come out and try to TV it on the inside. They had to clean out the roots first, and then they TV'd it. And when they did this, they just
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
you
TV.
put a TV in the pipe.
Oh, like a literal.
and you drag it
fiber
up,
optic
and so
cable.
you can
Okay.
a camera.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not a TV, a camera. I apologize. But anyway, when they did it, they discovered 7 connections to the sewer, 3 of which were not active. And you could see a couple of screenshots that they were actually plugged, so that was fine. So we knew we had 4 service connections to this pipe. The manholes at either end were 10 to 12 feet deep, so we knew this was going to be a deep sewer. And we asked Public Works to go out there and actually dig up the 4 services that were left. And so on this first exhibit, you'll see active services pointed out. Those are the 4 that we dug up. And we did that primarily to see if these were shallow service pipes that then turned and down to connect to the sewer, or whether they were as deep as the sewer. As it turns out, they were as deep as the sewer. So that's the first one. The second shot, 2 lots further east, there was a clean out that was in the middle of the lot. Now that lot had a house at one time, and it looks like that clean out would have been right underneath the house. In that, when they dug that up, what they found was there was 2 pipes entering from the east and 1 going west towards this sewer under 310 Todd. They're all active. In fact, when they dug it up, they realized that somebody had tried to repair this pipe earlier and had replaced parts of it. But that's a sewer service, and that's privately maintained, so we have no responsibility on that. But we do, as a city, maintain the primary sewer across 310. Looking at that, I thought, well, what can we do to replace the sewer and eliminate it from crossing diagonally? And that's this picture you see here, which is the site plan of what was proposed, a house on 310 Todd. And you can see the heavy solid red line is what I'm proposing here. We have to kind of zigzag the pipe so that it is parallel to the east property line, and pretty much that's what it's going to take to eliminate the sewer from crossing diagonally on this property.
Yeah.
Put together a cost estimate which was based on unit pricing that I got from Charlotte Water on one of their most recent sewer bidding projects. I will say those prices are a year old, and I came up with a cost estimate of $165,000.
How much?
165.
155.
165.
65. Okay.
In addition to what we were doing there, my curiosity was, well, when was the sewer installed? And to see how old it was. The pipe that we TV'd, put a camera in, is terracotta, which is clay pipe. And that's pretty much the standard that's been used in the country for the last 100 years. So it's a good material, as long as it doesn't get disturbed. So I looked at it. That being said, it could be as old as it could be. I needed to find a reason why it was there and why it got built in the first place. So I went back and I did check, and the 310 Todd Street Extension parcel was outside the city limits back in 1907. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but I just trying to get a framework there. And then in the 1920s, the records I could find said that there was a small white framed school built on the Reed Park property. And this is up near Sacco Street. I'll have a little more information on that. If you look at the subdivision plat that I included, Todd Street was subdivided in 1929. And if you also look on that plat, you'll see it says school in two places. Now, I point that out because further in, I've got an exhibit, which should be the next, well, a couple of pages into it. It's a 1938 aerial photo of the Reed Park area. And you can see there were actually, in 1938, two buildings that made up the Reed School. The one that was the original building up on Sacco, and then the other one, which is kind of an H-shaped building back behind 310 Todd Street. So it seemed to me that if they were building the school, they would have had a sewer to service that. The next exhibit that you have is the oldest sewer atlas I could find in the city archives here. That's from 1964. And I call out Reed Park and I call out 310 Todd Street. And you can see the sewer running through there. That sewer south of Todd Street crosses diagonally underneath lots and then gets out sort of close to Sacco, and then it goes diagonally underneath lots again. This atlas showed an old pump station, no date on it, but it showed what they called a new pump station, and that would have been 1964. So that would indicate that the old pump station had been there quite a while. So with that in mind, I'm thinking this sewer was installed as early as 1938 and been in play since then. And pretty much it was built in such a way that it took the fastest route to get down to Woodrow, where the pump station was. So it went diagonally across lots. The last lot on Sacco Street at the south end at Woodrow, several years ago, they had, the sewer was under that house also, and they had a flooding problem with the sewer, and it flooded this house. And in that case, the city had went in and bought the house and demolished it, and that became part of Rocky Branch Park now. So we know that we've had some problems. We did a project several years, well, many years ago, to reduce the flow in the pipe crossing Reed Park by diverting flow that was coming in from the north side of Reed Park around the western border of Reed Park and down to the current pump station. And because we wanted to reduce flow in that pipe, having had one problem where a house got flooded. So anyway, with that in mind, I don't know if I have an answer on how old that pipe is, but I'm guessing it's as old as the newest building
the newer building at Reed School. There were more buildings added, all attached to it, and they were all added close. One of the comments that's been made to us was that they understood that the city had a CIP project to take care of this problem.
Who made this comment?
The other side.
The homeowner.
And I'll leave that up.
Or
The property owner. There's
property.
Property, yeah, let's see.
Okay. Well,
And actually, we do have, I've given you a copy of that CIP project, a little small read, but the red lines on the exhibit were what was constructed when we had the problem with the flooding the house. The green lines were proposed for in the future, but if you look at it carefully, the green line doesn't go through 310 Todd, it just picks it up right on the street, on the Todd Street extension. So that statement is sort of true, but not really true, because we've never considered relocating that pipe under that lot. The house on that lot's been gone for a while, and quite frankly, I don't think we really were aware of what was going on that lot until we got into it and dug through it. So there's no conclusion to this. I just wanted to give you information just so this goes to court.
well, it's already in court.
It's in court. You'll have some knowledge of what we've done.
Are you proposing this as a resolution rather than a judgment from the court?
I'm not proposing anything.
So
I'm just trying to give you
what is this then? I mean, you're proposing relocating the line.
I'm showing you that it can be done.
All right, so there were 3 active houses, I think you said, on this line?
There's one service right in the middle, and then there were 3 that looked to be just north of the north property line.
And they'll still be...
There are at least 4, because I believe that the line that came across the lot from the Reed family properties, that there were several houses there that were hooked onto that one service line.
All right, and they was, under this new configuration, they would still be serviced?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the situation is, the existing sewer is deep. It's 10 to 12 feet deep. Yeah. The new sewer would have to be just as deep in order to intercept the services that were coming at it. So it'd be a deep sewer. Particularly, it'd be deep between the proposed house and the existing house on the lot to the east, and it would be hard to maintain. It's not a desirable solution, but it is a solution.
I think we need to be careful in terms of talking about a potential settlement to ongoing litigation, that I would propose, and you're asking valid questions, but I think we need to talk about this in a closed session, because we're talking about potential settlement of litigation, and any strategic concerns that we might want to discuss with an attorney, I think are privileged and shouldn't be talked about in open session. I would propose I would propose adding it onto the workshop, or some date. I mean, I think we need to discuss this, but I would want to discuss what are we looking at in terms of litigation costs versus this. What are we looking at? Would we pay for all of this versus reaching some sort of agreement? I think all that needs to be discussed in closed session.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the same thing before we say anything
Yeah.
else.
I wanted you to have information and knowledge of what's going on. I do want to point out that my cost estimate for that zigzag pipe is based on year-old prices, which could be double now. So don't be surprised at that.
It almost concerns me to have this information in front of me with the litigation out there.
Well, I mean, if it's not appropriate, why do we have it?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
This is, I mean, it's two different things, but the part of it's intertwined. This is giving information and suggesting a sewer project that not only involves one lot, this is subject to litigation, but other property owners that the city has an interest in cleaning up potentially. So you got a proposed sewer project. It just happens to involve a lot that is in current litigation. But the two, there's no suggestion that this is a part of any kind of subdivision. This is just presenting the potential.
So all this is for information only?
Yeah, it's for information and to see if you're interested in doing a sewer project.
Okay.
Is this something that they recommend we discuss in closed session?
If you want to.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yes, I think so.
Is this something that we could take up this evening, or does that have to be advertised in the closed session?
You could take it up this evening.
Does anyone have the desire to just go ahead and talk about this and dispose of it? Or would you rather wait to the work session?
I'd rather wait to the work session because I want to know numbers. If we're really going to discuss this in closed session, we don't have valid numbers.
All right.
I agree.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I guess our direction would be to add it on to the end of
The workshop to end all workshops.
Yes. I thought that was one of the budget workshops that was like.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That was like.
We'd really have to work to beat that one.
Oh, I'm sure we can
I'm
manage.
sure we can.
We don't have to.
Thank you, Jerry.
We're under no obligation to have long meetings.
Thank you,
Well,
Jerry.
Well, you're bringing pizza, right? I thought that
Thanks,
was already
Jerry.
settled.
Appreciate your investigation.
This has taken a lot of effort from the Public Works Department and
Yes, it has.
the engineer to come up with this. This is a complicated matter. That's why we wanted to bring it to you once we had this information compiled.
Well, we appreciate it.
We
'cause
have
it is
been
a-
working with this property
Thank
owner for a year or longer.
It is a
on
situation
this.
I think would be in everyone's best interest to resolve. So.
Yes.
All right,
That is
other
all I have
business.
for you for the manager's report.
Other business, we'll start out with Alex.
All right. First of all, I did attend the farmer's market. I think, there was tons of people there. Unfortunately, I got there late with Mark. There wasn't much left.
Which is actually kind of a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but no, great job to the staff and everything for that. Again, to kind of second what Adrian said, thank you to all of our staff that prepped the city ahead of Hurricane Ian or the tropical storm. Just two things that had kind of popped up to me, and I just saw this today, Bill. I'll send you a picture. I don't know, maybe you might be already seen it, but 74 and Main Street, there's a gutter that there's a hole. So like the actual, I don't know what you call it, the grate or the gate is not there anymore. And I just noticed that today, and I was like, oh gosh, I could fall down there.
Is it currently open?
It's open.
I'll get a code out there.
Okay.
For that, and then that's a state grade.
Yeah, I
I'll
figured
reach
it
out to
was.
the state to make sure they get repaired.
It's right there on the corner. It's like if you're going up to 85, that just kind of freaked me out. This is a kind of a silly one, but it's actually been multiple people have brought this up to me, and I'm kind of curious as well. The Stowe Park fountain, are we able to up the pressure to get more of water being shot out, or is that what it would? That's what I'm asking. Is that what it would require?
It would be investing in a larger pump. I know Mr. Ron Holt was communicating with me that he'd like to see it also go higher, and I told him to look, we had a pump company that he'd like to maintain that. We currently maintain it internally.
Mm-hmm.
If we got a larger pump, start talking about bigger fixtures, it may be more specialized.
Yeah.
So we certainly can look at
Yeah, I was just curious. I didn't know if it was just turning a dial or what. I'm not too sure. The only other thing that I'm going to mention, and again, I don't mean to keep beating the bush here, but the finances, I know we discussed, just to reiterate, cash flow statements are going to be very much appreciated to review this upcoming at the next workshop, I believe. Again, I want to reiterate that date in that letter. I think it said by December 1st of 2022, just to make sure that we're actually getting that in on time for the 2021 current audit. And again, I do still want to express my concerns that I know we're working on it. You know, shouldn't be here, but got to get it done. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, I would also like to thank staff for prepping the city for the hurricane. Thank God it wasn't worse than it was. I did attend the farmers market. That was fun. I enjoyed that. I'm glad we have it here. From there, I moved on to the River Keepers grand opening of their new facility in McAdenville, which is a nice facility, and they've moved their office from Charlotte, so they actually are here in Gaston County, where they primarily do all of their work, and they're right there on the river. And very nice facility, and I'm excited to have them there. Now, as part of that, I sat and I talked with Mayor Willis of Cramerton for some time, and we began a discussion about the holiday season. And the subject of the nativity came up, and I said, you know, I've always admired it that you guys have that nativity. Now, is that something that the city does, or is that something that is privately done? And he said that the city does sanction that. It's on city property, and they support that as a city. And I talked to someone in McAdenville. Now, while Far Yarns puts on everything that goes on in McAdenville, they do receive in-kind services from the city, stringing the lights and other things, which is somewhat tacit approval of what's going on there. I've always harbored the idea that I would like to see Belmont put a nativity up here in this city. I like McAdenville does it. So I want to bring that forward to council for consideration at some time and see if there's anyone who is like-minded who would like to see that, and if so, we could move forward with that. Other than that, I had some other things, but I cannot seem to locate them or recall them right now, so I'll leave you with that and pass the baton to Mr. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. So several things. I feel like we used to get a lot of minutes from our advisory boards in the agenda packet, and we're getting fewer and fewer. I do like to keep up with what those boards are doing, so I don't know if there's any way. I know the timing for some is a little bit difficult based on when their meetings are, but I do like to keep abreast of what they're doing, and I just feel like there's fewer and fewer of those reports in our packets these days. I'd like sort of an update on the North Belmont booster pump station and what's going on with the public safety center. I know from that aspect, I think the original property was a no-go, and we're looking for a different property. But we've been dealing with other things, but I'd like to just see how those two things are going.
Right now?
At some point, but
So,
if you know right now, I mean,
the booster pump station is being constructed, Jerry?
They are, well, it's a package booster pump station. Put together and have broken in the ground. We know that there's going to be a 6-month wait for the generator, several months for pumps. We're still looking.
Okay.
So, that's underway. As far as the North Belmont Public Safety Station, the former fire chief determined that the preferred location would not be suitable because of the dimensions and the depth of it. I asked him to look for alternative locations, and then he unexpectedly retired, so that's been on hold.
Okay.
I've asked the new fire chief to examine where we need to have fire stations and to look at our capital needs for the fire department.
Okay.
So all that is under review.
I too would like to thank city staff for all their efforts in the storm preparation. It was sort of I was down in Destin during the week, and we thought we were going to get it in Destin, and then all of a sudden it went back the other way, and it ended up in Charlotte, and so we were sort of concerned about what was going to happen. And I'm glad everyone everyone made it through. We had some minor issues, but I appreciate everyone's stepping up, and I appreciate that. Then on Saturday I got to go to the football game in Tallahassee where Wake Forest beat Florida State. I just wanted to mention that. I was also at the farmers market. I share Alex's and Mark's sentiment that by the time I got there, there was like a lot of stuff was sold out, which is a good sign. So I'm going to have to get there earlier. I would like to remind everyone of the Belmont Trolley event in conjunction with UNC Charlotte on Wednesday, October 12th. That's from 6 to 8:30 p.m.
Where is it going to be at?
It's going to be right here at City Works. We all should have gotten the invitations. So
okay.
Look around for it. If you don't have it, let me know and I'll make sure the trolley board sends it out. But we're all invited to that.
What time?
6 to 8:30.
6 to 8:30.
6 to 8:30. So.
You guys actually just want to send me your RSVPs so that I can communicate with you.
Okay. And the last thing, I appreciate Richard's comments on the Christmas display. I would just caution us before we move in that direction. There are potential establishment clause issues with that, so we just need to be very careful about proceeding in that fashion. So I would assume it would be something we discuss anyway before making a decision, but we just need to be, on that something. Parks, I did a little bit of digging, but that's a legal thicket. Sad to say, but we just need to be careful about that. So that's just my word of caution on that, and we'll see where it leads. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, the Red Raiders play Friday night against Kings Mountain. Both teams undefeated, so pray for the Raiders. We can take them. Martha?
I have several items. The first is, after our last meeting, I was very concerned. I received responses, not that I elicited them, but I received responses from a number of people who were in attendance, business people, and although our mayor and Mayor Pro Tem need to rein it in, this went over the top as far as what happened with Jared. What the perception was by the people in attendance was that the council ridiculed an employee in public, that it was abusive, and it was an attack. Whether we thought that or not, that was the perception of our audience. We need to keep our deliberations at a high level, and that did not reflect well on us as a group.
You're right.
Adrian should never have said that he was not a finance person. He certainly is not. He's a planning person. And he makes sure our bills get paid and our staff gets paid. Jeff Booker is a finance person. He's not managing that with the county school system. One of the things when I talked to Barry Webb, besides about the clean audit, was what was reasonable to expect. He said in all the years that he has been a city manager, he has never seen someone who's an accountant nor a CPA. If you're looking at somebody who's a city manager, it's more somebody who can manage staff and people and us to some extent. So you're not going to normally get that skill set. So that's a big concern to me that you shouldn't have said it, and because it caused a situation where people were questioning what you are able to do. But according to Barry Webb, you're not supposed to be a finance person. yeah, you're supposed to manage it. The other thing that concerns me, I talked to Seth Norcat because I was very concerned about losing him. I think he was a very valuable employee, and I mentioned that at our meeting when he was not there. I talked to him, and of course, certainly that we did not approve an assistant or somebody to help him was part of it, but we have a situation here that one of our council people said to him that a large part of what he did was push buttons, and that there were 3 total votes out there to outsource IT. Obviously, I'm not aware that we had deliberated that, so it very much concerns me that we lost a valuable employee by 2 hits, and that was not acceptable. We need to do a better job than that. The other thing that he reminded me of is that he was going to be the project manager to deal with the Parks and Rec Center, and that was all going to be in-house. We were not going to have to pay somebody extra for that. And I don't know whether it's still feasible or whether it's something you would consider, whether we could contract with him just to do whatever needs to be done with that, because he had a loyalty and allegiance to this town. And so I don't know, Adrian, whether that, as I said, I would like for you to at least look into it and see whether, maybe money-wise it's not worthwhile, maybe it is. So those items very much concerned me, and that's it for me.
I agree with you, Martha. Mark?
I'll just note that the feedback I received on last month's meeting was the complete opposite of what you described. So we clearly talked to different people, but that's fine. I don't feel like any of the questions that were asked were unfair, and I feel like that from council's perspective, it was a important and difficult conversation to have. So that's all I'll say on that. I do recall us having a discussion about starting the renovations on the Stowe Park restroom sometime this fall. Is that still on course?
The plan is to start that over the winter. So Kevin, we're ready to send out the bid. It is currently out to bid. Construction beginning in December. We wanted to wait for the event season to end so that we don't shut down the restroom.
Right. Okay.
Yes. So that's underway.
The only other thing I had was I'm not exactly sure what the tradition is on this, since I've only been on council for 2.5 years, but in my experience, we've completed the manager's annual performance review by Labor Day-ish, and I feel like we've not yet scheduled that. So I feel like we need to have a plan for doing that before we're into next year.
Okay. Is that it?
Well, I was hoping to get some resolution on that. We can pick a date or come up with a plan.
It seems like it has been done before now. I mean, I would agree with that.
I know it's usually done. Oh, yeah, that's an HR. I thought she.
I think she is in the back.
Who spearheads that?
Yes, it's been a little delay on that because we've had a lot of things going on, but we can get it out for you potentially when it's October, and we can do a closed session in we'll have to do
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When is it traditionally done? Because I kind of lost sight of it.
It's skipped for the last few years. We've been doing it in March. We changed it to the following year. So the last couple of years.
That's my recollection, because I don't think Alex has done one yet.
No, I have not.
So it would have been done prior to the election last year.
Okay. So we're looking at doing a closed session in November then?
Yes, I will get with Amy and I'll have to get the information out to you.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb.
That's it.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.